This is like a court case, bro. We're gonna go back and forth forever, bro. So I love it. I just can't. This is the coolest show I've probably ever been on. I'm just so excited about this. I think that dude, I just think this is like, we should do more shows. This is just so cool. This is just the coolest shit ever. This is like the coolest. Bro, I'm telling you, bro, this is how, oh, I want to smash my table, bro. This is how a court case is supposed to be, mother. This is how a court case is, dude, please, Mr. Farrell, DOJ, complex attorney, complex litigation, please. This is how litigation is supposed to be, bro. If litigation was 50% of this show, 50%, we would have a whole new country. Yeah. Everything would change. Everything would change. Inflation would be gone. Everything would change. All your rights. You would have all your rights because you wouldn't be lost. You wouldn't be confused. This is it, brother. This is it, brother. We need to have conversations. We need to have conversations. Conversations, please. Can we have conversations? Like, I'm like freaking out, bro. Like, I can't believe I've been going for 2 or 3 years. I've only had a few conversations. This is the best conversation I've ever had.
I'm going to bring in here, Brandon. Right now, I'm marking citizen, bookmarking citizen, and naturalized. Let me bring you in here. How you doing, my friend?
Hey, dude. Pretty good.
Nice to meet you. It's a pleasure to meet you.
You too, my friend. You too. Hold on 1 second here. Oh, I think we're good. Okay, good.
So, first off, I got to really emphasize my excitement in that as soon as you started exploiting the Black's Law's Dictionary, you really got my attention, because when I was in debate in high school, so much of it came down to a war of definitions. And the thing that I had learned quickly was that you needed to have the trump card of definitions. And the Black's Law Dictionary was that, because the Supreme Court uses the Black's Law Dictionary, and you could get like 5 different definitions for what you're trying to do. So you could always kind of make your argument. So I appreciated that, because it's something that they heavily lean on, and yet is a weapon in and of itself.
Well, I'm kind of surprised to hear you say that, because I do, like I said, I'm a new litigator, but I don't know if you get a chance to kind of take a look, because I do a lot of shit. I'm always working on something, but I'm new, but I'm prolific, essentially, would be like how I would describe myself, right? So new, but a lot of shit's going on. So I'm learning very rapidly, right? So I always find it funny, because you say Black's Law, you don't know what kind of reaction you're going to get. Sometimes you get negative reactions. Sometimes you get people think you're crazy. Sometimes people don't know what it is. Sometimes people think you're brilliant. It's just crazy to me, because, and then you also have the people who do think you're crazy will tell you that Black's Law, is just bullshit or whatever.
But are those normally like people recognized by the profession?
Even attorneys, yeah, you never know what you're going to get. You never know what you're going to get. And the thing that I don't understand is, in some, okay, so you look in Black's Law, sometimes you'll see a definition from like corpus juris secundum. Sometimes you'll see a definition and there's not really any information as where it come from. But oftentimes it's case law. And I think to myself, so case law is okay, but Black's Law isn't. That doesn't make any sense. That's like, what the
So well, it's called the cherry picking of getting the outcome I want, right?
It does, yeah. Well, no, because the people who I talk to, I'm not even talking about like a live litigation. I'm not even talking about like me in a meet and confer with the defense. I'm talking about just a social conversation. And that's why it's so shocking, because they're not trying to make a point. Like when I'm in a meet and confer or something, they say something like that. It's like, okay, I get it. I see what's happening here. But when it's just a social conversation and you're just chatting it up and there's nothing there and they say shit like that, you're like, okay, I don't know what, I'm the new guy.
Let me kind of, I want to push that a little bit more. I'm curious, what is the trend or pattern you're noticing? Is it really just scattered across the board because it's lost in disarray, or is it like
all over the
the
place.
legal profession or judges, or is it like pro se litigants? Where is there a commonality amongst the people that would dispel one versus the other?
No, I mean, obviously, like I'm more on the fringe end of things. Obviously, this doesn't require a whole lot of research to figure that out. So on my end, Black's Law is considered like the Bible.
We're starting off on common ground.
Yeah. So I agree with that to a pretty heavy degree. But I think now that I've been in litigation for a while, and now that I'm like starting to actually put together pretty coherent documents inside of my litigation, it took me a while. I've never been to school. I've never done shit. I don't have any mentors. I just started throwing my dick around. So it took me a while to sort of get my bearings and stuff, which I'm sure you can understand.
Yes.
So,
which, you know, what's funny is the attorneys and the legal professionals are doing the same. They're just doing it with a title.
I've had so many attorneys tell me that. I've had probably 4 or 5 attorneys with over 10, 20 years of experience tell me, Brandon, you want to know the first thing I had to figure out when I graduated law school? I was like, what's that? How to file a lawsuit. Are you with me? Nope. They're like, nope, dead serious. I was like, wow, okay.
You know what? In many ways, like, so here, this is 2 sides to a coin. Then we'll really kick off the dialogue. I have severe disdain for the education system. I think it's compromised. It's politicized. Yeah. There's agendas. They're literally just breeding drones with an ideology.
Yeah.
The higher you go up in formal education, the more compromised it gets, or at least the more accurate you're able to see it for what it is. So while I really do think the system is failed, people are getting rewarded for immutable characteristics, and you are watching other people be stifled because of ideological or political positions. And on the flip side, though, so I get a frustration when people look at like early education and they go, math is useless. When am I ever going to need to know proofs? I don't need geometry. And in many ways, no, you're not going to need to know proofs, but we're teaching you how to learn. And so while I'll have severe criticism for the curriculum, professors, the system, its makeup, and ways it could be better, I want to concede when I left, I felt the same pain of like, oh my God, I don't know how to do half of this. But it is fascinating. And I think all of those people that would probably, that you spoke to, would share the same criticism. I think the one thing we would be able to relate on is it really does change the way you're able to think. So I have an appreciation for you because you didn't have to, like, it's kind of like looking at a military titan who ran the ropes, climbed the mountains, jumped through the tires. And it's like, well, of course you can run a marathon, and you're Bert Kreischer. You just drank the beers, you had the fun, and holy shit, you're running a marathon too. Yeah. So what I can appreciate is like the one podcast you sent me, ton of views. Shout out to Staphanie. That was a great interview. However, I could tell that's somebody that you were speaking on an echhelon. You were playing with words that were above my head. And so I think these dialogues they're failed in certain respect because I think you were cheated true challenge. And so in this dialogue, I'd like to have an opportunity to challenge some of those things, not for any other reason, but to siphon out the truth. Because I think where we might find contention, I want you to know it's coming from a place where not only do I, in my heart, think there's more accuracy to your position than anything else, but even more so, you're not going to convince the rest of the working mechanism unless you can confront these challenges. And I think also grounding it in layman's terms, because getting back to that metaphor I gave you, we are speaking, it is Latin. People are like, oh, it sounded like you spoke Latin. It is Latin. Like literally the whole thing is constructed on Latin. And so it is a foreign language. It is a difficult thing to decipher. Some people don't have that Rosetta Stone. And so one of the other things I'd like to try to accomplish in this conversation.
Well, it looks like English too. That's the part that's so
That's half the trick.
So the thing is that when you look at Japanese, you're like, that's another language. But when you look at legalese, you're like, I must be an idiot because this is my language and I can't read it. But they don't realize it's not their language. That's the scary part about it.
I can appreciate that. So if you will indulge me, I'd like to kick off the episode.
I'm down.
So I love that term, think tank. Think tank. I mean, you know what a think tank is? Like, how's a think tank go, Jim?
Yeah, you know they got cancel culture nowadays. You gotta watch what you say. It's getting real scary out here.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't know if I can take the conversation here, but we might as well. It's the Rethink Tank. Looks like you had a little bit too much to think here in the Rethink Tank.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? And thanks for joining us again. Today, I present to you one stupid but in a world of idiocracy, I'll tell you that it normally would take one stupid to have the appropriate and necessary change we need. Now, do I think my guests may have all of the right answers? Who knows? That's the fun of this dialogue, this experiment that we're going to wrestle with. However, what I do think is there's a lot of value with that exercise, the wrestling with challenging ideas, and the David and Goliath approach of being the one pro se type man that's going to take on a whole legal system and hold it accountable for what it is something fascinating for an exciting, great dialogue. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest, the one stupid. Let me introduce Brandon Williams, Brandon Joe Williams.
Thank you, guys.
Which do you prefer? The full name?
The full name, because Brandon Williams, it's so funny. Sometimes people do hit pieces on me and they find these court cases with people named Brandon Williams. And they say, look, he got arrested for this. Look, apparently I've been all over the country and apparently I've been arrested 400 times. So the thing that people don't realize is Brandon Williams, just the NFL alone, there's like 7 of them. Okay,
well, I got to tell you, Brandon, you set yourself up for quite a sticky wicket when your whole argument is that you can be lucid like gas and appear in Antarctica or a citizen of what's your address? Can you give us what's
P.O.
that
box.
place?
123 Purple Monkey Lane, Pickletaria, in the Nation of the Amnesty Coalition. That's correct. That is my legal
So of course they're going to sit there and be like, yeah, this Brandon could be anywhere, everywhere.
Yeah. Well, that gets into the definition of naturalization from Title 8, Section 1101, subsection 823, which is that is something you mentioned at the beginning. I think that's something we're going to talk about in the show. That is a core aspect of everything that I do. And then obviously the definition of the word person from Title 8, which is 8 USC 1101 subsection B3, I believe. And then inside the definition of the word person, we have the term organization, which is defined in 8 USC 1101 subsection A28, which is also mind-blowing because it includes unincorporated groups. So that whole conversation of naturalization is, in my opinion, one of the craziest rabbit holes. And I think this whole conversation we're seeing all over the media about birthright citizenship, it's a complete joke. I mean, it's an like I'm literally in tears laughing. Because an organization is a person. An organization has a nationality. And that nationality is determined by naturalization, which is simply just saying it. And the crazy thing is anyone can say it. A guy who doesn't even know anything about anything could just say it. And then bang, if nobody else responds to it, it's like a court case. If I say I'm a U.S. citizen and the defense never says anything back, bang, I'm a U.S. citizen. End of story. So the thing, I'm not a U.S. citizen, but end of story. So it's a crazy conversation that opens the door to, corporations have a nationality. So if corporations have a nationality, that means they are eligible for a passport. So when we have a passport and it's in our name, is that name on the passport, is it a natural person, an individual, a trust, an estate, a partnership, an association, a company, or a corporation? No one's ever asked this question.
Right. And I think why Black's Law Dictionary can be such a tool, but also such a fearing weapon to others is what I think how law evolves. It's like the culmination of statutes, legal law, but also precedent and interpretation. And it evolves over the course of time. And what I think we're experiencing now, and I want to at least lay the groundwork for maybe one of the points I'd like you to try to defeat in this dialogue, is what I think we're experiencing, or your perspective and that challenge is highlighting, is that there has been this whole convoluted nest of law created, interpreted, and evolved. And you have like, well, we need a person, right? We become a nation. We beat the tea grubbing biscuit folks across the ocean, and now we need to create a nation, and we create persons. Well, then companies that, the cotton people get so rich that they want to be able to change politics. And so now in big financial interests create loopholes or existences, right? When the courts determine that corporations could be persons, we were screwed. But that wasn't on the onslaught of the creation of law, right? So I think Black's Law Dictionary becomes where the buck stops, where kind of all of these different definitions, the UCC, the ORC, because I'm in Ohio, like whatever, your state code, legal precedent, it kind of brings it all into one place. And it could highlight some of the definitions you forgot and how it complicates other interpretations, but also it might bring some clarity, at least, which is its intention. So first off, do you have the ability to share your screen? Because in that other podcast,
That's
you were able
all
to
I do every day, all day long. Is do
through StreamYard. Is it showing your ability to?
I've been on StreamYard a million times. Yep, definitely.
Perfect. Do you mind as we kind of go through this? I'd like to see it with you because, again,
I wouldn't have it any other way. If I couldn't do a screen share, I'd be complaining.
I appreciate that. So let's give the listeners an idea of where we'd like to take, because Brandon has a lot of different fields he's dissected and currently working on
three main ones. And like I said in our email chain, the driving, traveling thing, there's just so much. Dude, I'm telling you, bro, listen to this. I'll talk about negotiable instruments and money. I could tell you how to print your own money, open up your own bank, infinite money, discharge mortgages. Oh, I could teach it all to you word by word. We'll break down all of UCC3. I have a whole flow chart that I made. I'll show you documents, and we'll go through court case. Everybody's quiet. Everyone thinks it's cool. Wow, this is really cool. You start talking about nationality, citizenship, not paying taxes. Everyone's pretty chill. You start talking about driving versus traveling, and everybody loses their mind. And I just think it's super annoying. So I don't talk about it a lot on shows, because everyone fucking loses their mind, and you think to yourself, well, that's perfect. We should talk about that because I'm going to have 9,000 comments in the comments section. It's true. It creates a lot of dialogue, but it's just not, you're not leaving the world a better place. It's just not my favorite subject. I'll do it. Don't get me wrong. I'll do it all day long if I had to. But if I had to choose between the three, which one, like I said in the email chain, which one of the three gets the strongest positive reaction from the largest group of people listening? It's definitely money versus negotiable instruments.
In terms of positivity, is it like persuasion? It's the most convincing forms.
No, it's just the most empowering. I mean,
okay.
Driving versus traveling is cool. It empowers you. It empowers you to know what you can and can't do, and how did this thing happen, and why do you need a driver's license, and what is the contract behind the driver's license, and what is registration. It's this international registration system through the AAMVAA, whatever the fuck it is. Who is that? It's an interesting conversation. You're learning about, you have these contracts, and where do they come from? And I didn't know that this was the contract, and how did this happen, right? The negotiable instruments versus money thing is every minute of every single day, you are dealing with unconditional promises and orders to pay. Every single moment of every single day, especially in today's world with people using credit cards, you are producing, which means that you are the maker/issuer, if you use UCC3 terms, of a unconditional promise to pay every single time you use your credit card. So the thing is that you are manufacturing negotiable instruments, which are legally currency and have been since the mid 1800s, which I have the case law for that too. We can show you the Supreme Court cases on that. I have them cold, very simple, like one-liners and stuff, two-liners, not like some huge thing that's really hard to listen to. And the thing is that we are manufacturing money. It's not actually money by legal definition. It's currency all day long, every single day. And then we're essentially abandoning that currency. And even the courts are just absolutely flabbergasted by me putting this shit into the records. I mean, they're just like at a complete loss for words. Everybody's at a loss for words. I mean, we're at appeals. I'm working with an appeals case right now where there's a prosecuting or a defense attorney who's a partner. It's so funny. All my cases start with interns. I eat the intern alive, and then bang, it's with a partner. It's always the same cycle, dude. It's always the same. And they're like, "Oh, here's a pro se guy here. This is perfect fodder for you, intern."
Let me ask you this:
the intern, and I just eat the intern, and they go, "Oh shit!" and it goes straight to the top every time. Boom! There's nobody in the middle. It's so funny, dude.
But I do have to ask this though: through that experience, at least it reoccurring now, are you feeling like maybe that young, eager intern might actually have might be more of a challenge than the senior attorney at these offices, or am I projecting? Because to me, I feel like they get rusted.
No, because the partners. So if you dig through all my cases, it's all they try so hard to stay away from the merits. Oh my God, it's as if my arguments are Satan incarnate, and to touch it would infect their body with COVID. What they do is they come at me procedure. So when you have the interns, they do a couple little weak ass procedural points, right? But when it comes to the partners, they go hard on the procedural attacks, and it's like really, really well structured, long, detailed procedural attacks. It's not merits. I mean, I've never really been attacked on my merits, hardly at all. I mean, they do little bullshit things. I mean, me getting attacked on the merits of my arguments is basically just calling me a sovereign citizen and saying that every single case that any one of these people ever, for the 8 trillion years in the federal courts, they've never, ever, ever gotten any case, and they've never gone anywhere. Like that's it's like, bro, like you're just being like a child, bro. Like that's not what this is. Like I have like real actual things, and I get it. You've never heard these arguments before. It's not really my problem. Is you either respond to in opposition and you actually play the game and you actually do these things, or your little bullshit temper tantrums. I'm just gonna steamroll you. And at first I didn't understand how to deal with temper tantrums. Like I went into this thinking we're gonna have conversation. I was so wrong, and I just didn't think that was gonna be the reality. Like I'm like, oh, I'm gonna put forth these things, and then they're going to be like, no, bitch, you're wrong. This is what's going on. And I'm okay, great. Now we're going to have a conversation. It's sort of like one of the realizations I had recently is that the courts are essentially a practice of dialectic materialism, which is essentially like Marxism. You have a thesis and an antithesis, and then what comes out of that is the synopsis or whatever, and that becomes the truth of the case. It's essentially a huge realization I had recently on this, right? So I changed up all my ways that I operate and everything. And as soon as I had that realization and I made all these adjustments, now I'm actually getting traction in the courts for like the first time ever. It's super cool. But my point is, we've never had a conversation. I mean, the only conversation I've ever had that was of any real value was by a very, very senior, partially retired federal judge named Susan Richards in the very first case that I did with a client of mine. And she basically actually wrote a couple paragraphs as regards to the documents that were in question, of which I thought were unconditional promises to pay, were actually conditional. And then she explained why and how. Besides that, and that's only happened one time, I've never, ever, ever had anyone say anything meaningful. It's just procedural attacks.
That doesn't surprise me at all. So that being the case, let's talk procedure before we get into one of our topics that we'll flush out this episode. I do want to ask, when I was listening to that episode, and we're going to put the link in here for that episode with Stephanie, because I don't want to have to reflush out an entire 3-hour conversation.
Those things have changed, like I said before. So that one, just to be clear.
Well, exactly. I wouldn't use it as the Bible or the precursor to this dialogue, but it is something to benefit seasoning this. I only say that because one of the things that came up that I wanted to kind of pry a little bit more on was she had asked you, what's the success rate? How are people coming to you and are people saying it didn't work, and you were like 100% of the time it universally works. So I know that the listener can go to your website and see some of the case law and see some of your curation of your history and experience. But can you give us some, like, the examples? Can you flesh them out for us? Where have you seen actual I don't want I hate using that word because
No, this answer requires more conversation, and the problem with going on a lot of shows is that it's conversation that's a little bit more technical, and so
sure.
you'll see me divert off of
I'm
that
all about
a lot
that.
of times because I'm kind of like, I'm not going to get into a civil procedure on a public show with someone that it's just a disservice to everybody. They're not going to care. They're going to turn it off this show, right? So the technical answer is you have administrative and then you have litigation, right? So when I say 100%, like, for example, like, I got rid of my driver's license. I don't need it. I use a passport. It's never an issue. And one of the things that I teach.
Let me ask real quick: have you been pulled over and produced the passport?
No.
Okay.
I no. Let's just say no.
Fair.
So, but I have a ton of people, and I get reports, and I hear, like, what happened. I get body cam footage. So it's a whole big it's a whole big thing. I have, like,
so through your network, you've seen other people that have experienced this and found success.
Yes, and it's not. So to be clear, the 100% success rate aspect, when I said that, I was involving mainly administrative, right? So, for example, let's say you want to protect your assets. You have, like, for example, I had the Employment Development Department in California coming after me. It's the Mafia Payroll Police. So what did I do? I created a private trust. I got an EIN number, a foreign EIN number for that private trust. And then I moved all the assets of the business into the private trust, and all the negotiable instruments that were in the account, the bank account for that business, got moved into the private trust. So because that's an administrative action, it is a 100% success rate. There's no way that something like that can go wrong, right?
Fair.
Getting types of passports and the various types of passports and the documentation for various types of passports. Up until recently, we had a really high percentage rate of being able to get this done. We had a small percentage of people that would receive additional communication. I did develop technology, or really just a simple little paragraph to address the main concerns. That was mostly effective. 99% of the time we were able to get all that straightened out. But then in December, I had a huge breakthrough, changed everything, and then we've had 100% since that point. But I consider a passport to be more administrative. So when you have another person there that you have to interact with or interface with, such as a police officer in a traffic stop, it takes that 100% administrative hit rate and brings it way down, and it injects like 9 million different variables into that situation, right? So if you take everything that I say and everything that I teach and you apply it exactly as I teach it, from my experiences, we have a 100% success rate. For example, when you get pulled over, you say that you are what's called an official guest or an internationally protected person or a foreign official, which are the exact terminology from 18 USC 112. And you say, I'm not a resident of the United States. I'm not a resident of state of California, because they have to establish residency to write the tickets. Right. And then you're not a U.S. citizen. And to say you're a U.S. citizen is a felony under 18 USC 911, up to 3 years in prison. You say that. You could say that. These are all things you're not just bombarding the officer. These are just things that you're just, I'm a foreign official. I'm an official guest. I'm just here, as a foreign official or official guest or internationally protected person on behalf of my nation. And then, people think that's crazy. I have my own nation. Well, you'd be blown away by how easy it is to create your own nation. It's like Scotland, a name. No, I'm serious. A last name has a crest, and you drive down the road and you'll see in Scotland, people have these crests in this name. It's a fucking nation, bro. It's like a legal nation. Scotland is a great example of how easy it is to have a nation. And you start getting into the definition of nation, right? So for example, if I do a screen share, I can show you this. I don't know if you've ever seen this. Very few people have ever seen this. But if you go to 18 USC 11, this is where I got this. I mean, I was studying a lot about the law of nations and international law and stuff like that. It's really fascinating. But this is 18 USC 11. This is obviously like a criminal code type definition. It's from Title 18, right? The term foreign government, as used in this title, except in these various sections, includes any government, faction, or body of insurgents within a country with which the United States is at peace. And then this last part's the most interesting part. Irrespective of recognition by the United States. So without getting into the definition of United States, which I could do 2 hours on easily, this is a really fascinating definition. And this is the and then I looked up in Black's Law, what's the definition of the word peace, which is really fascinating. People think that peace is just like, I'm in a log cabin, I don't bother anybody. That's not the definition. The definition is actually an action definition involving internal tranquility of a group and external tranquility being offered. So like you see all these different organizations, my favorite of which honestly is the Sovereign Military Order of Malta. My nation is basically based off of the same skeletal structure as the Sovereign Military Order of Malta, which is like a 900-plus-year-old organization. And the reason why I modeled my nation off of the Order of Malta is because the Sovereign Military Order of Malta does not have any land. It's literally a landless nation. And I thought that was the most fascinating thing in the world. I was like,
so let me ask you this, because again, we're cheating the listener that doesn't have the full context of like, I've heard your definitions of nation and everything else, and I know we got to get to the full presentation. But one of the things that I'm curious about is, okay, a person could be a corporation, a collection. You used like cells, how they make up like one entity. At the same time, I'm curious, how do we do that? Does a nation have to disclose how large its population is, how many people identify as being a part of the populace?
Well, no, that doesn't make any sense because why would a domestic entity be able to have or create international law? Now, it can create laws in terms of something contracting with it, meaning like, we have a law. Let's say I'm the president of the United States or legislation of the United States or whatever. And I say, okay, if someone wants to contract with us, they have to fill out a form. It's a standardized form. On that form gives information. Do you have a judicial system for your nation? What is the overall population of your nation? You also got to think too, so nationality and citizenship. No. I'm just giving you, I'm just pulling shit out of my ass right now.
So I don't have to disclose how
the answer is no, but I'm telling you that could change tomorrow. That could change tomorrow. If the United States says, okay, from now on, especially with all the tariffs and everything going on, okay, especially from now on, any nation that wants to contract with us in any commercial way, they need to fill out form FL213 and they make it up and they give it an OMB number. And it has number 1, name of nation. Number 2, approximate. Now, the thing that no one gets, like, it's crazy. Nationality and citizenship are 2 completely different fucking conversations. Title 8 is not nationality and citizenship. Title 8 is nationality and aliens. Citizenship is not mentioned anywhere in Title 8 until you go deeper and deeper into the fucking title. Why is that? Nationality is senior. Nationality is more basic than citizenship. Citizenship comes after nationality. No one knows this, right? So, like, if I was going to write up a standardized form for the government, question 1 would be, describe in words or give me a paragraph of what the nationality of your group is composed of. And what that question is nationality is essentially allegiance. So you're pledging allegiance to what? An idea, an intention, a goal. So the question in a more simple way, even more English than legalese, would be, what are the goals, intentions, and purposes behind your particular nation? Because that would determine nationality, right? And then the next question would be, do you offer citizenship, right? Because citizenship, by definition, so is a great Supreme Court case in, I think, North or South Carolina. It talks about this. The judge in that case says that the term citizen in our law is the same as the term subject in common law, right? Which is brilliant. I couldn't say it better myself, right? So the thing is that what does that mean legally? It means that you are literally subjecting yourself underneath something in order to get some kind of benefit. That benefit is typically thought of as like military force, defense, like international societal structure based off of a military defense structure. If you had to ask me my personal opinion of what essentially determines why someone would subject themselves to a nation, I would say the answer is a peace of mind involving like military force, wars and stuff like that. Because if there was no war, citizenship would be kind of an irrelevant subject. And there's literally generals during the Civil War. I read this whole long thesis that this general from the Civil War wrote, and he talks about like passports aren't even constitutional. He said the only reason why you can even have passports is because there's war. Without war, there'd be no passports. So the thing is it's in order to have any of this shit work, basically the commander, I forget his name, I have to look it up. I have to look at my notes. He's like, in order for any of this shit to happen at all, there has to be war, which here we are, 2025, there's always wars going on. Well, you wonder why. It's because all these structures and all these things
in Gaza.
They're exactly. There's no way you can't. A passport is not constitutional, and I could go on and on. We can go into that very deep. I don't think passports are issued to men of the union. I think that passports are only issued to estates, trusts, partnerships, companies, corporations. So that's a whole nother conversation. But the thing is that it's to be more technical, I think that passports are only issued to sole proprietorships. That's a specific type of corporation. Anyways, I think if you could sue the Department of State and get a passport for a trust, which at some point I'm going to get bored and I'm going to do that. And I guarantee you I'm going to pull it off and it's going to be awesome. Right. I've told people whoever pulls this off is literally my hero because I know it can happen. It's just no one's ever done it. Right. So, anyways, I forget what the question was. I kind of went off on a.
Well, no, you're fine. You're fine. So keeping us, one last thing I'd like to flush out before we actually have like a legal presentation, because I want to be able to kind of wrestle some of your content. But before that, I want to lay the groundwork of a consideration that is at least top of mind or framing my perspective, which is where black letter text meets practical reality. Yeah. And so one of the things that I kind of want, it's not a pushback, but I at least want to have season the consideration when you further present. One of the topics that I guess we're going to avoid talking about today, but maybe I could show you a good enough time to convince you to come back and we could parse it apart another time. But when you talk about transportation, so transportation, travel versus what are the terms? Travel.
I'm down to go into it. It's just I don't say the things that I say in an effort to avoid. I say the things that I say in an effort to warn. That's all. So and as the host, if you want to drive right in there, boom, I'm in there. It's okay. I have no problem.
Well, we're going to flirt with it. That's for sure. We're going to flirt with it. So one of the things what are the two terms? Travel versus.
It's such a stupid conversation. It's so much simpler than that. Honestly,
we don't need to parse apart the whole topic, but like
I don't use the word traveling, and the reason why is because I know a lot of people like to use that term. I don't know enough about the case law. I just say I'm not driving. That I know. I know that one. I've got 9. I got a Mount Everest.
So even when you're operating the motor vehicle, you're saying you're not driving.
The word operating. Have you ever seen the definition of the word operating? You know, it's like so 300 words.
I think we're going to naturally end up parsing this apart. But again, I don't want to totally open that can. The thing,
the word operates in Title 49, which is transportation. Dude, it is. It would take me 2 weeks to slice up, and I don't even, there's certain things that I run into, and I'm like, I don't even see the point in spending 2 weeks on this. I'm sorry, because I'll tell you right now, I'll go to a court of law. You're operating a motor vehicle. I'll slap that definition on the table. You tell me what that shit means, mother. I can't figure it out. I'm too stupid, and I know you can't figure it out either. Good luck. Here, go ahead. I'll cross-examine you right now. Go ahead and just tell me what this definition means. It's like half a page operates. Yeah, exactly, you retard. So you're going to tell me I'm operating something? What the fuck is wrong with you, bro? Judge, this witness is completely fucking incompetent. What the fuck is he doing here? Why the fuck does he even have a badge? You see what I mean?
I mean,
It's like, it's ridiculous.
You got your finger on the pulse.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So we get into the word operates, and that's going to just piss me off. Okay. And then motor vehicle, that's motor vehicle is okay. We can get into motor vehicle. That's a whole fucking thing. That's actually really fascinating. Right. So, but operates is exhausting, bro. It's an
okay.
word.
So before I allow you to exhaust yourself and maybe even drag us to exhaustion with you, I want to present to you a real life theory scenario.
There's a simpler. If you want me to talk about this subject, there's a way simpler
Again, I want to try to avoid the subject. I'm only using it to make a point going into like the other topics, which is this. You brought up traveling, and when you get pulled over by a cop, you pull out the passport and you say, I'm not driving and I'm also not a resident. And you gave us a list of things. I was like,
I wouldn't
did
jump into
that work?
First. I would go into foreign official, foreign guest. I'm an ambassador at large.
Right. Yes, that was it. I'm a foreign guest.
So we use diplomatic license plates. So what we do is we get what's called a foreign private motor carrier number, which you can get for free from the Department of Transportation. You can literally just get it online.
So wait, your vehicle doesn't have a license plate like from California?
No, God, no.
Wow.
My vehicle doesn't even have a certificate of title.
All right.
So
looks
in South
like
Dakota,
this is gonna be a topic. Money is not it today.
So in South Dakota, I always forget if it's North Dakota or South Dakota. I would need to check my notes. It's been a while. In North Dakota or South Dakota, you can actually, and it's totally like even within the system. A lot of the shit that I teach is crazy. Even just normal ass shit within the system. You can go to, I think it's North Dakota, might be South Dakota, I forget. They have out of state trust title registration. And you call them up. I think it's South Dakota. SD is like triggering my on the address SD. I think it's South Dakota. So you call up this teeny little DMV. It's not called the DMV. It's a little something different. And you say, yeah, I'm and you can look it up online. South Dakota out of state trust registration. I could probably pull it up on the screen. So I did that first because you got to understand. I went through a lot of gyrations on all this shit. I didn't just. Right. I didn't just, I'm not driving, I'm traveling. I didn't do that out the gate. I was terrified. I had my driver's license for the longest time. I didn't get rid of that for the longest time. There's so many different things, right? So South Dakota, out of state trust. I want to say registration, but that's just part of it. It's titling and registration, right? This might be a good. Application registration for trust, foreign business trust. This looks pretty good. But anyways, I did this. I went through this whole process, and you pay a single transfer fee. That's actually pretty sizable. Actually, it's like I think I paid several $100s, and you actually get registration stickers, plates, the registration card, everything. And the way it says is it says that the registered owner, which is that's a whole fucking monstrous rabbit hole. That one's hilarious. Registered owner is the trust name. And then below that, it says trustee. And then the S is in parentheses, trustees, because it could have one or more, right? And then below that is your name. And that's the way that you would get the registration from South Dakota. And you say to yourself, well, shit, does that mean you wouldn't be liable for things like smog in California? No, you wouldn't be at all. You could put a 16-cylinder diesel in your, Golf GTI, and there ain't anything anybody could do about it. So
wait, why is that?
Because because your title and your registration is under a trust, and it's in South Dakota. So it's not so you're not contracting into the California Vehicle Code, the CVC, right? So the CVC, people think like, oh, the CVC and this and that. Well, if you have a driver's license in California, even though you have a certificate of title under a trust in South Dakota, you're still under the CBC because you told them that you were a resident of state of California when you got your driver's license.
Right.
And people say, okay, fine. I got rid of the driver's license. Ha ha ha. Now what? And I go, are you registered to vote? Yeah. Okay. On your voter registration, you sign under penalty of perjury that you are a resident of state of California. Bingo bambo, CBC. You're in.
So you
So
didn't
if you
vote.
get rid of that,
Was that
now,
were you able to vote or no?
Voting? Absolutely not. So now we've already gotten rid of all these things. Now it's like, okay, Brandon, now what? I got rid of the voter registration. I got rid of the driver's license. I got rid of the certificate of title. It's in South Dakota. Now what? That's where I start. That's the.
Can I
beginning of
ask
the
another
conversation.
question real quick?
Yeah.
Because again, I appreciate you're a wealth of knowledge, and it's like I'm trying to catch droplets as a waterfall's dumping on me.
Yeah.
One of the things I want to ask, because again, you're just glossing over the fact that like you are underplaying how much you've detached from what we've socially like ingrained into the fabric of our existence. So I want to ask, all right, so
people think I'm this genius and like you could never, dude, I'm telling you, like nonstop all day, every day, 14 hours a day for like 3 years. Like I'm telling you, most people can learn this shit faster.
Right.
But I'm not sitting here telling people that I'm a high IQ individual. It's irrelevant.
No,
I don't care if you've got a 90 IQ.
I'm not trying to eat the whole onion at first. Let me take one layer and we'll get through them, because I think we need to make this digestible for like you said, this is digestible for anybody, the layman.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to catch a waterfall with a bucket, you're going to drown.
Yeah.
So I want to get to this point. You're glossing over some of the things that people are really attached to. I mean, dude, over 150 million people voted just a couple months ago. And a lot of those fools, myself included, feel as if that has an actual impact on their life. I will be the first to exclaim, they're all fingers to the same hand, and we're just watching Shakespeare's play. But as much as I don't think we had a political government real win, I still do think we had a social win. Maybe that pendulum I've been told about forever is actually turning. But I want to give you this question.
I can hit on that, by the way. If you
No,
want to.
I know, but you've foregone voting. You're foregoing a license.
Real quick.
You
can vote. I can explain how voting can still occur. I choose not to, but
Sure.
I can explain how that would work in this circumstance. But go ahead.
But again, we've got so many different topics.
Yeah.
One of the things you had said is, well, if you were to attribute or claim a nation, a nationality, really, you could reason somebody would do that for safety, security, military reasons, right? Like in a world of anarchy.
That's not like legal day. That's just like
no. This is we're having a conversation. This is just the dialogue of consideration, right? So while there's legal text, a lot of that legal text is seasoned with policy consideration.
Yeah.
So this is just the policy talk. So if the policy consideration is most people would sign up for a nation for military. You said if somebody were to ask me this question, that would be my answer.
That's correct.
Well, my internal dialogue was if somebody asked me that question, my answer would be the social contract. And philosophers have, parsed that apart for thousands of years. Now, what is a major crux of the social contract? Military. So again, I do think we're running parallel to each other, but I do think mine is a net that catches more. And the more liberal perspective is that I will be the first to damn the way the government spends our money. I, of course, hate that I'm losing half a paycheck every 2 weeks, and not enough people are losing half a paycheck every 2 weeks to care about where your taxes are being spent. Everybody's on the nipple, but nobody's actually feeding the nipple, at least on mass.
You should give your court a W-8-BEN form and tell them you're tax exempt and watch the whole place burst into flames. That would be, dude.
Where I'm at, it would burn the place down. They're on it. They can't even survive an audit.
W-8-BEN form, tax free, brother.
So I want to at least balance. I want to see your consideration when I present that. I think I would. myself personally, and I would project on other people that they would attribute themselves to a nation, not just for military security, but for the welfare that social contract gives them, right? So not only are they willing to claim a nationality for that security, but they're also giving up almost half of their resources. And we're all putting it in a pot under the theory of
that's under citizenship. Just to pop that real quick. I just want to pop in there real quick. So that's citizenship. That's not nationality. Nationality, there you are not subjecting yourself to anything. That's the secondary portion.
Bingo. Okay, so that was where I was going to lead the question.
So this is how all this works. Step one is allegiance. You start going down the rabbit hole of naturalization, nationality, nation.
Not to cut you off, but can I ask you one quick question?
Yeah,
my question is this. You're not voting, you don't have a license, but where I was going to lead that whole inquiry are you still at least getting some of the fruits of the welfare state? And your answer could be yes, because the citizen avenue, but I'm curious, are all ties cut? Are there all ties cut?
I could go in and get approved for every single social security, every single welfare, food stamps. I can get approved for every single government program faster than almost anybody walking the earth in like 3 seconds. And the reason why is because when you start going down the rabbit hole of who really has that passport, who really has that driver's license, the answer is it's a sole proprietorship. People say straw man. You hear that term a lot in my area, right? That's bullshit, because you start going on to, dude, nobody talks about this. It's like the simplest thing. I'll do a screen share. It's like so shocking. Holy, everyone's talking about straw man. Dude, they define it on Cornell. It's on Cornell. What is a straw man? They tell you, bang, it's right here. It's not that complicated. The first sentence is all you need. Straw man is a third party that holds property in intermission for the sole purpose of transferring it to another. So people are like, what the does that mean? No. People ask me, well, what the does that mean, Brandon? If I had to define a straw man in the simplest way to where people would instantaneously get at least kind of an idea of what it might be, it's an escrow. Okay. And yes, there's more to it. And yes, there's all this other shit. Yes, there's more to it. But to me, it's just an escrow, bro. A straw man is an escrow. It's simple, bro.
So what are you using the straw man
all
for?
Caps name that everybody calls the straw man. It ain't a straw man, bro. It's a sole proprietorship. You start going down that rabbit hole. IRS, sole proprietorship. What is a sole proprietorship, right? And it says here, sole proprietor is somebody who owns an unincorporated business by themselves. No one's ever asked, bro, where the did this thing come from? I have an unincorporated business, and whenever I use my name, it's an unincorporated business? Who the gave me a business? Where the did this business come from? No one's ever asked this question. Sole proprietorship. I have a sole proprietorship. Great. Thanks, guys. Who gave it to me and why? No one's ever asked this question. And then it's so simple. People think social security numbers and all this. Go on the SS4 form, which is the application for an employer identification number when you're going to get, an EIN number for a trust or an estate or a corporation or a company or a partnership. Type of entity, section 9A, sole proprietor. It tells you, brother, the tax identification number of your sole proprietorship is the social security number. If I have a sole proprietorship, do I need an EIN number to file taxes, or can I simply use the SSN? We'll go to the IRS themselves, the mouth of Title 26. Well, we're going to go right now, because the thing is that they're very clear about this. That's a PDF file. Let me see if I can find something else here. IRS sole. Let me try this again. So let's see if it's on the same page of what one I was just on, right? and we go down, and it might take me a minute to find
No,
this.
you're
but
fine.
The social security number is the tax identification number for the sole proprietorship, right? So then you go to like a DS-11 form, which is the passport application form, and you go down, and it says here, name of the person who is getting the passport, right? So the name of the person getting the passport is the sole proprietorship, because it's asking you for a social security number. Social security number ain't yours. It's the sole proprietorship's. So you type in that social security number, you type in your name that you had at birth, because if you change your name, it may or may not change that name of that sole proprietorship, right? Every time you do a name change, all you're doing is just changing the name of the sole proprietorship. And then if you look on your long form birth certificate, it'll say date received by local health officer. That's the date that they actually opened the sole proprietorship for you. So in my case, it's about 16 days after I was born. So the date of birth would be the date of birth of the sole proprietorship. And then you go down to the second page and it says name of applicant. That's where you put your name. And then you're going to put your date of birth. So on the DS-11, it's two different persons.
Wait, so real quick. The sole proprietorship that was opened with your social security number, what's the name you're using?
Well, for mine, it's Brandon Joe Williams in all caps. But
and that's different than, oh, right, because I do remember you talking about that in your other conversation. So
people say straw man. It ain't a straw man, bro.
What do you mean?
People say it's a straw man. You know, a lot of people in my arena, I guess you could say, right? And people ask, like, Brandon, why did they have to create a sole proprietorship? Simplest thing in the world. It's the Commerce Clause. The Commerce Clause of the Constitution. That's why they had to create all this stuff. Everything, like, dude, I'm telling you, like, every road leads to the Commerce Clause, bro. Like,
all right. I am begging you to let me present to you a scenario that will be necessary to season the dialogue. That's where I was going with, like, the travel thing. And I promise it'll get back to the point you just made.
Cool.
So my question to you is this. When I had asked you about, like, when you got pulled over, you pull out a passport and you're saying, well, I'm just a visitor. I'm just a guest. I'm I'm not traveling, and I'm not driving the vehicle, whatever the words are. I know I'm probably butchering it, but when I asked, have you personally tried this? You had said no, but there are others that have. This is where that legal text meets the practical reality. And one of the things that I experienced in law school, and I promise this is a diatribe, but it is a full scope. When I was in law school, the bottom 20% of the class was cut every semester to keep it competitive. So even all the way through to the end, you're potentially going to get cut out. And one of the things that I was wrestling with in the fear of potentially maybe getting cut out my last semester, because again, the pool just kept getting smaller and you're building the pressure on yourself. The sad part was the realization that if I fail this, I could still just go be a cop. And so the legal standard to fight the law is higher than the standard to be the law. So while I totally agree with everything you're presenting, the people that are enforcing these things are the most ignorant to the law. And while the buck stops in the courtroom, that's why there is so much transgressions with the cops is, sometimes the cop may be legally in the wrong, but people are not willing to let the court sort it out for them. And they get, physical, whatever it may be. And the scene snowballs from there. So again, keeping in that practical reality realm, one of the things that I want to ask about is, let's put ourselves in that scenario. I don't care if you're in California with, the frolicking documents from South Dakota. I had indicated earlier, and this wasn't in the show, just when we were talking about, like, sovereign citizens, right? So when I was first told about, there was a colleague in the podcast space who was like, you need to talk to this guy. You have a legal background. He's saying things that it's convincing to me, but I really can't make heads or tails of it. And so I think you should talk to him. And when he was giving me an idea of it, so one, it's hearsay. Two, it's like the ignorant repeating of what you actually have parsed apart. It sounded like a sovereign citizen to me. And I was like, yeah, those people are crazy. They're lost in their own ethos. And no matter how much they believe it or stand by it, if you're playing basketball and I'm playing baseball, it doesn't matter how many more baskets you have than me. this courtroom's playing baseball and my runs are what's counting, not your baskets. And so I only give that position because when you're in the driver's seat and you pull out the passport and you start saying all this language that is beyond the not only the understanding of the cop, but the classical practice that he's been through experience trained on for X amount of years. Where the rubber meets the road is when you try standing by, and like you said, you could climb up the appellate ladder and get to a more sophisticated legal eyeball or ear to truly wrestle this. But that's where I kind of want to have the dialogue, is where the public and the actors that carry it out have a legal understanding. It gets away from, like you said, the black letter, the real, look at the law, open up the book, read the text, and that will tell you you're way off the mark. However, that's the realm people are living in. And it's trying to bridge that gap where we can bring them together. It will come through confrontation in the courtroom with people like yourself, actors that actually challenge this and make the legal actors and minds that have just marched in tandem for centuries, because that's just how we've done it, make them actually evaluate it. But my problem will be when people actually try to implement this, you're going to get an officer that, when I think of a sovereign citizen, I'm not thinking of Brandon Joe Williams. And I'm definitely not thinking of a sophisticated compilation of legal text. I'm getting bombarded with schizophrenic letters where their blood thumbprint is stamped on it, and they really don't have an understanding of their own legal realm they've created, let alone how that combats and merges with our own. And so the second you are in the, let's live in the theory. Brandon Joe Williams is in the right. Everything he's broken down about the passport, a frolicking guest in America, whatever it is, he's got it down. But the blue collar cop that does not have that understanding and has sure as hell never heard it, and if and when he ever did, is looking at you in the shadow of a sovereign, oh, we got another one of these, and they will overstep. You drew the lines. Let's say in theory you're right with the lines you draw. They're for sure going to overstep those lines because they don't agree with them, they don't understand them. And then it goes to a court to be sorted out.
You'd be surprised that this is so. Let me get a drink for this one. You mind if I?
Please.
Perfect. No, it's perfect. Can I go? Is this good? Okay.
Please. Yes.
So this is the coolest conversation because you want to know my answer to the whole driving versus traveling thing. If you want to boil it down to this ultimate simplicity, which I enjoy doing very much, don't be a retard, don't be a asshole, don't be a dick. Which is everything. We go from there and we start getting into. So when I started researching nations and building my nation and the law of nations, obviously from there, boom, you're outside of the USC, the CFR. Yeah, we got 18 USC 11. Yeah, we've got some cool stuff that kind of give us some little tidbits, but you're above that. You're in international law at that point, right? So I started looking at like for example, they have a diplomatic immunity guide for law enforcement, which you can type those words I just said right into the internet. There's a PDF straight from the Department of State. You click on it. It's the first thing that comes up, and then bang, it's this beautiful brochure. It's not a whole lot of text. It's very pretty. It's got really cool things. It's got a little graph near the end of it that shows the different levels of diplomatic immunity depending on if you're a diplomat versus a consular, right? So I started getting into all of this information when I built my nation, right? And so we have like what's the difference between a consulate and an embassy, right? How do you a consulate can go anywhere. An embassy can only go in the capital of a certain country or location. There's different, diplomats are non-commercial, whereas consulates and consuls have more of a commercial taste or tinge to their activities. And then those are the two subclasses of diplomatic / consulate classes. And then you have subclasses within those two subclasses, right? But then you start getting into it even farther. And you have literally entire little manuals issued by various government agencies, or maybe the UN. I don't remember who it was. And it's like they'll have like a diagram of a table, and it's a dinner table. And it's where each person sits and where does the fork go? And it's like, how do you introduce an ambassador at large to a consul? How do you introduce a staff member of an embassy to another ambassador at large? How do you shake their hands? What side of the body do they stand on? People don't realize there's this whole technology to international relations, which is simplified into these two subclasses of diplomat and consulate, or consul or consular, right? So understanding that, in my opinion, is a lot more powerful and more valuable than having your passport and having your South Dakota license plate and having your this and having your that and having your this. Everyone thinks that paper and ink determines the output of this. I'm not saying that the passport means nothing. I'm just saying that if you the more time I spent understanding international law, I have custom passports from micronations. I'm building my own passport. We're going to have our own. It's not going to be called maybe I'll name it a driver's license. The idea of me giving anyone a license to drive anything, it makes me want to feed my into a wood chipper. So I'm probably not going to call it that. But my point is, it's understanding international law and relations is actually legally, it's not really law, but I would say legally it is the senior most level of law. And then we have to come down into law, right? I mean, if you think about it, law only exists because we fail to understand diplomatic relations. If everyone understood diplomatic relations, which the technology is already there for everyone, why would we need law? It's almost everyone would just automatically operate in a beautiful world, and we would have literally like a social utopia. So the answer to the question is yes, the passports are cool. Yes, all this stuff is cool. Yes, I do all of it. I have special license plates. I have a passport. I had a South Dakota registration and certificate of title, and then it was in a trust, and then I sent all that back with a cover sheet and told them to destroy everything. I had a driver's license, and then I went in and then I changed my address. I changed my signature. I added things like without recourse from UCC 1-308. Which is a reservation of rights. I changed my address to make it so I'm a non-resident, and then I changed that I'm not a U.S. citizen, which is just a bubble, yes or no, U.S. citizen. I had that for a year and a half. Then I finally went in. I said, this, I'm done with this. I want to turn it in. They were confused. They had me fill out a little form. Why are you turning in your driver's license? Because I'm no longer a resident of any of the 50 states or the District of Columbia. Turn that in. They took it. I got a little printout of my whole account with the Department of the DMV. It says, surrendered, I think is the word they use. So yes, there's the functionality and the administration and the papers and the paper and the ink. And then there's the diplomatic side. And I truly believe the diplomatic side is like 80% of the importance of the technology. And then 20% is all the other shit. But the thing is that I have so many reports. I have reports of people's windows getting smashed in, the whole 9 yards, the cars getting taken away. And I have reports of people going 150 miles an hour, and then they just say, hey, slow down, have a nice day, and they're just let off. So it's everything in between and everything top to bottom. And the thing is that the passport does make a big difference, especially if they can't establish residency, because there's two. The main technical point, getting outside of diplomatic relations, getting outside of all of the plating and everything like that. If you notice, if you carefully dissect the behavior of an officer, what is the number one concern? They have two concerns, but what's the number one concern? Number one concern is I have to establish residency, and no one knows this. If they can't establish residency, they can't do anything if they can't establish residency. Now,
Can you parse that apart a little bit further? What do you mean? Why?
because without residency determines citizenship. Without citizenship, there's no contract. That's why they're like driver's license, address. Give me something. Give me a social security number. If you don't have that, I need something. They're looking you up, trying to find that address.
Have you unburdened yourself of a social security number?
It's not mine. It's the sole proprietorships.
Right. Gotcha. Capital letter, Brandon Joe Williams.
It's the business. The businesses, and in a court of law, I would present the SS4 as evidence. It's evidence that the social security number is a tax identification number for an entity called a sole proprietorship. I have hard evidence on. It's right there on the SS4. So the thing is that what's your? Now the thing is that what's the word your? I could talk about the word your for an hour. Your.
Seriously?
Well, yeah, your. If you control the sole proprietorship, it's your business, and the tax identification number of the business is the social security number. You control it. It's
but who are you?
Yours. It
Right.
is yours, but it's not yours directly. It's yours indirectly. It's a number that identifies a tax connection with the IRS between a business, your EIN. Let's say you have a business called Starbucks. What's your EIN for Starbucks? Oh, it's 27 dash, you know. So the thing is that your can indicate secondhand ownership. Ownership is a crazy word. We can get into that for another hour. Because you have registered owner, you have types of owner. The definition of owner is just, you look in Black's Law, it's somebody who has expressed an interest in something. What kind of interest? There's a million kinds of partial interest, absolute interest. People think owner means absolute interest. Absolutely not true.
Man, minor attracted persons are thrilled to hear you say that.
God. No. No,
just going off your definition, man.
Yeah, that's things get. I tell people fairly often. I go, look, if we start going down these rabbit holes far enough, statutory it won't exist anymore. If you're not a U.S. citizen, you don't have a driver's license, and you don't have a registered, and you're not registered to vote, and you have absolutely no contract with the state or the federal government. And you know what? I'm not. It's not something I'm happy about. I'm really not. But the thing is, it just is what it is. There is.
So what I can appreciate,
but
please.
On the flip side, what I like about that is if we go all the way down that rabbit hole, we're going to wind up in basically 1850 all over again, and that's kind of what I want. In 1850, if you're around with a 13-year-old and dad doesn't like it, you just disappear. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know. He came over one day, and then I don't know. I have no idea. He just he was talking. He's been a cool guy, and then I don't know. I never saw him again. I have no idea what happened. Like that's and then like that's it. That's the there becomes a lot more of a pressure for each individual to there is immediate and massive possible consequences of your actions. Dad comes in with a double barrel shotgun. It's over in like 3 seconds. He takes you out back. Hey, son, come out back. I want to talk to you for a second. He's real kind. He goes, and then he just blows his legs off. He's on the ground screaming, and then blows his head off, and then buries the body, and that's it. Nobody ever sees him again. So
it sounds like pickle justice.
So am I? If I had to choose, and go down the rabbit hole of common law, the reason why equity even came to be at all is because common law was so violent. They would strip the guy's arms and legs off in public and leave the dangling bloody body over, which a lot of people would agree. That sounds pretty good. That sounds pretty good. But it was I'm telling you, it was so violent that equity was created. If you go down the rabbit hole of the history of it, equity was created to try to temper and soften common law was like, yeah, string him up. We want to have blood all over the town. I want the whole saloon painted in his blood. That was like common law in America, right? So equity was kind of like, okay, let's chill. Let's talk for a minute. Let's actually like maybe take a breath, right? So I think equity is super cool. I think equity is.
Yeah, that's a curse word here in the Rethink Tank.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Why is that?
You are talking to someone. I I will die on the hill. But again, we're going to be. Equity has become a politicized term. So I don't know by what definition.
I'm talking about
I knew it. So
way back.
You know what? I look at the word liberal and I look at when I left, I was in college and I was like, I'm liberal. I went to every philosophy class and I'm like, that's what I am. I don't care who you're fucking or what you're smoking on your property. As long as it's not affecting mine, I'm liberal to it. Then I learned, oh, no. A whole political faction has commandeered a term and redefined it so they could fight under the veil of good. And I'm like, well, I'm sure as hell not that. Yeah. So what I think we're experiencing here is, again, as Democrats do, they take a term, a word that may have some virtue, and they commandeer it so they could use it for their own agenda. So I'm curious, give us the ability to bring equity back into the rethink tank as a term of endearment or power, because right now I could bore you for an hour of debating how equality is better than equity.
I would go so far as to say, dude, like, take a common law situation where something happened, and you start going way back. Like I like to look at a lot of Supreme Court cases, a lot of activity, a lot of historical timelines in the 1800s, because it's really, 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 really fascinating. And it shows you the core of what we operate off of, which is gold and silver coins, the county recorder, local courtrooms, local juries, and common law. If you really want to get, but then the word common law, everybody uses that term nowadays and nobody knows what it means. So there's also that part too, right? But the thing is that for me, common law there was a rape on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, the guy's legs were getting torn out, and he's being, his guts are being sliced, and his guts are hanging down. He's being hung in town square, and he stays there until he stinks so bad they got to take him down and take him out of the town. Which is, it's okay. I mean, look, if a town wants to work that way, who am I? Again, a domestic entity, which is, I'm domestic of my own nation, of my own world. What right do I have to tell the international playing field or a town of sovereign individuals that are operating as an insular cell to themselves? I have no right to tell. That's the thing the liberals don't understand, is they think that they can go around and they have this giant ego and they can tell every other sovereign cell how to operate. Oh no, you can't have common law. You should only have equity, right? But from a personal opinion, stated thoroughly as such, I to me, converting common law over to equity could be, if I was running my own little Tombstone, Arizona, okay, and I was the mayor, the judge, the jury, and the executioner, I would say common law, but we're going to add in, it's sort of like a meet and confer, like local rule 7-3 in California, a lot of other places. I love 7-3, because 7-3 is you have to have a meet and confer, and then you got to wait 7 days to file it. To me, brilliant. I don't know if Ohio has that, right? So you're adding in a little bit of time for all the people to sort of like talk and kind of chill and kind of, if you did something and a week or two has gone by and everybody still wants to kill you, you should probably be killed. I mean, that's kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm kind of like in that, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like equity could be as simple as just inject little buffers. Everyone hears this thing and there's no evidence produced and there's all these rumors and everybody wants to just kill this motherfucker. Let's kill him right now. I want to rip his pickle off and eat it live in front of the whole. Okay. Let's put a 14-day on this. On day 3, we're going to do opening discussions. On day 5, we're going to do this. On day 7, but in 14 days, I'm capping it. On 14 days, something
comes up with that cap.
The judge or whoever. I mean, I'm just saying
the system that we're fighting, right?
I'm just throwing shit out. Like, you asked me a question, and I'm just like, right. This is
with you.
What's my definition of equity? Just put in a little buffer, bro. Don't string them up in 10 seconds. Don't string them up in 10 seconds. Put in a little meet and confer. Put in a little evidence meeting, put in a couple little depositions, put in a little something, give the guy an opportunity to defend himself, calm people down a little bit. Hey, 14 days. If you guys want to string him up and cut his dick off and smoke it, turn it into a bong on national television, I'm okay. But let's do 14 days. We're going to have
Why
a
14?
specific. I don't know. I'm just, you know what I mean?
We're theorizing. I'm with you.
I'm just
I'm with you.
theorizing. So,
I'm with
so it'd be like, what's the case management plan? So you have a case management plan over 14 days, and you have day 2, day 4, and it should be speedy trial. That's what everybody deserves. So it's not going to be 6 months to hear back, which what I experience all the time. So it's like day 2, this is going to happen. Day 4, that's going to happen. And you also got to think too, one of the most fascinating things, you start looking into this old school law shit. Nowadays the idea of going down to the courthouse is nobody wants to do it, bro. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
I've read a lot of cool shit on this. This was the local MTV reality show of all these little towns. Everyone was there. Everyone wouldn't miss a fucking minute, bro. If they had Uber, they wouldn't even be leaving the courtroom. They'd have people Uber Eats into the goddamn courtroom. I'm not leaving. I'm not out here for nothing. I'll piss in a goddamn Coke bottle. You know what I mean? So the thing is it's like, how do we bring back? I actually think Judge Judy and like some of these things is really interesting and cool, because it's sort of like bringing back that original energy of like, this should be something everyone should be interested in. This should be something everyone should be talking about. This should be entertaining and fun and exciting. And then ultimately, if people actually would stop talking about procedure for 5 seconds, which pisses me off to no end, if we could actually have actual conversations about some of these things, this would be awesome. This would be the coolest, most amazing, most life-changing, bettering activity. There is no activity in the world that can have more of a positive impact on everyone under the sun, moon, and stars if we just got away from all the procedure. We didn't go all the way back to common law, because then it is going to be getting stripped and murdered in the streets, but somewhere in the middle, and we could just talk about merits and talk about actual information and talk about actual definitions. And I'm trying to do that. That's all I'm trying to do every single day. And I just get hit with procedural, and I just get ignored or called a sovereign citizen. And I'm just going to continue to keep bringing it up until someone starts to talk to me about it. And that's basically like my whole platform in a nutshell. You need to bring these things up and bring it up over and over and over again until somebody is willing to talk about it. And if it needs to be all the way to the Supreme Court every mother time before anyone's willing to talk about anything, well, okay, here we go. Supreme Court, here we come.
That's right. That's right. Here's the unfortunate part. As much as you want to rely on that flawless system of accountability, where the buck stops is the Supreme Court, and they could just say, nope, because we like the status quo. So there's the loophole they have over you. Now, I appreciate you taking that position. You want someone to finally take on that dialogue. I really want to have that with you. I think there are fruits on a tree, but we also got to agree that there's also, if we consider a tree, sometimes there's dead limbs. So my piece, in balance to what you just presented, first off, a law school, if you go to law school, they're not telling you when you are learning common law. There is probably common law, case law of guts and limbs being ripped off. But really, the consideration of what common law is the instinctive foundation to law where there wasn't it. So as we developed a nation, right? So what did Brandon Joe Williams present to us? If you follow the rabbit hole far enough down, it totally unravels. Yes, to a certain degree. And running parallel with that thought, if you unravel it all the way to its base, that common law base is not going to be everything solved with hanging a guy dripping his guts out in the courtroom. Common law was the understanding that property, what is your property? If a deer walked onto your land and you shot it, but then it walked over to the other person's land and died there, how do we parse apart who has claim to that deer? And again, what common law was the first time these issues were ever really considered. Kind of like what Brandon's doing here. There's the fullest extent. Now we've created a whole nest of legal terms. And really, as he said, no one's ever asked these questions before. Well, common law was at the time where no questions were asked. And we just had a foundation of community that kept anarchy from ensuing. This conversation you and I are having today, Brandon, is the perfect conversation to follow up the one that we just had with a great. He's joins us every Tuesday. We have a great friend from Canada that he doesn't have much appreciation for the cops, and he was the perfect person to have a conversation about anarchy. I don't know how familiar you are, Brandon, with Michael Malice. He is. Oh, please do me the favor. If you're not much of a podcaster, he is one worth just. He defines himself as a troll. A polarizing figure that I idolize. A good conversation to start off with would probably be Jordan Peterson's recent interview with him, and that's kind of what provoked the topic when I brought it up to Silent Destroyer, my last guest. That being so, the reason anarchy sounds great. And as I've had a educational background in philosophy, some of the strongest thinkers were the people, everybody kind of has a system of government and society that appeals to them and they tie themselves to. And the people that defended and fought for anarchy were the most interesting. And yet and I learned a lot, and boy, did I have fun wrestling with them. Also, admittedly, though, when you flush that out to its fullest extent, it doesn't hold water as much. It doesn't meet reality as much as we'd like it to. So, again, I really loved your presentation of everything. But where the rubber meets the road is where that officer, he may never have dealt with you, somebody that knows what they're talking about. But
and is kind and stable emotionally.
Have been given to them about sovereign citizens. And so when Brandon, who is in the right, starts spewing it all, they've already, listen, dude, I've heard this before. You're getting the ticket, take it up with the judge. Part of the problem is the first layer of the judge is also probably going to have that same surface of experience where this is how we've always done it. And I'm going to rule this way because the Supreme Court of Ohio hasn't come to me and told me otherwise. And you're just going to go up to the appellate court and be their headache. And, they also have the same discretion. You may not get much weight there. So I just wanted to give the listener a couple pieces. One, I appreciate your presentation of common law, but I do want it to be at least internalized that it isn't just this barbaric system of like chaos. It was a system of law before we considered a lot of these nuances. When we talk about converting common law to equity, you gave an interesting definition or perspective of what equity is, and it's really just the practicality of like what's yours, what's mine, and how we parse that apart in the real world. And really the force at which you can do so. But when I talk about bringing it back to like, if you go down this rabbit hole long enough, it all unravels and it comes back to common law and it kind of just busts apart at the seams. I want to actually get your opinion on this because here's what I can appreciate. You have three hard-hitting topics that on any other podcast, a person can listen to. You parse apart it legally in its fullest. I think what's unique about our conversation and where I thought it would end up going regardless is we're getting a surface level of it all. And I hope, again, to really parse apart these topics in a deeper respect. But because this is just me in a free thought arena with someone different than me, but also we have some common ground, I want to push on one thing. What is your consideration of anarchy? Because when you start presenting, well, we're all independent sovereigns and we're all kind of, and it's the contractual relationship between all these entities, whether you make that relationship or not, and all of these considerations, how much of that is balanced with the practicality of we got to live in a real world where we don't want anarchy, because anarchy inevitably leads to a government anyway. Because if I'm left to my own devices and my producer Doug's left to his own devices and you're left to your own devices, but we kind of get along, Well, then we're going to team up because that just builds our security. And then it builds and it builds and it builds until we've got nations fighting each other, right? And I'm using the social terms, not these legal terms. But that's the balance, is where the legal meets the social. I want to give you one last kind of metaphor. Let's say in 1700, they were playing Foursquare. You know, the classical game with a rubber ball that we all played at a recess at one point in time. They played that in 1700. We're looking at 330 years ago. And over the course of that time, the game itself evolved. And the problem is going to be when in 1850, they wrote down the rules to Foursquare. And because of human experience, other rules came into play, like, hey, you can't spike over your head because Bob was tall and he was fucking everybody up. So we needed to change this a little bit. And then the rules evolved to, well, you can't step over the line, but what does it mean to step over the line? Is it just crossing the crest, or is it having the foot and all of these rules get made? Well, part of the problem is going to be 300 years from now, or 300 years later, when they're playing the game of Foursquare, the judge is 300 years later playing the game of Foursquare with the understanding of modern Foursquare. There is now a written rule of what it means to step over the line, to spike over your head, to hit the ball in such a way, whatever. The problem is going to be, we have gotten away so far from the black letter law that was written in 1800, 1700. One of the things that Stephanie brought up to you, and I think you glossed over it too easily, is what's going to happen when you raise this and they just change it. They go, oh, we didn't think of that, and we just change it. I only say it in that way because that's what it feels like. This thing has evolved. The game of Foursquare has evolved over the course of 300 years to where smart thinkers that are challenging the system are looking at the foundation, the 1850 rules that were written on how to play Foursquare. And you're trying to convince a judge that's living in 2025 Foursquare. And while that may be how there's this relationship between citizen, nation, and everything else, but that's not how we're operating in the real world. And I only present it in this way because I want to get your and I'm going to give you the floor. I want you to exhaust it. I want you to have the opportunity to say everything on your mind. But the last piece I give you is this. We got to live in a real world. And we also, I'm hoping we could agree that true anarchy at its core is not the answer. And so when you say kind of like 14 days, one of the things I want to ask is who's coming up with that? Who's enforcing that? That means we agree that there should be some sort of mechanism that is policing and standardizing civility. And we need to live amongst each other. I don't care what the rules are. I just want the rules clearly articulated and that we are all operating on the same rules. If that's something we can agree upon, then we need to also, I want to see where I can bring Brandon Joe Williams into legal letter law, black letter law. Like if you're saying, one, I appreciate, I don't want to put you in a box. So I want to also articulate what I understand you're doing is using their words against them. I don't want to do you that disservice. You're not dispelling it all. I'm just playing you wrote it down. I'm using what you gave me. I totally respect that. On the flip side, en masse, we're talking about a tribe of 350 million people that want to rob you, that want to steal from you, that want your property, or just want to plant tomatoes up the street and not be unburdened by anybody's intervention. And we are trying to create a space where they can all interwork amongst each other in a safe and pragmatic way. So if that is a place where we are trying to meet each other, meet me halfway, that's the middle ground. What would you want or or propose that system to look like? Because again, you've shown it to me. It's a quagmire. You're going, look at this swamp. And I'm like, you know what? At this point, we're 2 hours in. I don't want to get muddy. So what I do want to ask you is, you just showed me a shitty quagmire that we're trying to use as the concrete glue holding this place together. So what would you propose it should look like? Because I do fear if we walk your road, if we pull that thread you found long enough and it does unravel to nothingness, we don't want to be in anarchy. So how would you suggest things be defined in terms of our relationship to the state, our contractual social agreement with the state, or because again, I guess all that I'm laying to you is that there should be a foundational agreement that we need some sort of referee here. So what would you suggest that referee look like? Yeah, I know.
You've hit a lot of great points. I mean, there's a part of me that I wish we could cut all that up and talk about it more and then break it down. I will say one thing. I've been on 100 and I don't know how many, 160, 170 shows. I've never had these kinds of conversations, and I just literally can't appreciate it any more than it's possible. And I literally would feel actually honored. I'm going to use the word honored to continue these conversations and to expand, because I think that these are some of the most fascinating and I'm used to coming on shows and people don't even know the definition for a person. That's it.
Dude, the problem was, I watched that last episode. You were presenting great shit with a yes man. I had questions. I'm like, either there's no gears spinning on the other side of the dialogue, or you're afraid to ask the questions.
Well,
but I don't know how you present all that you did, and nobody it's like you presented me a frog. You remember 7th grade science, and it's freaking open. I'm looking at the heart, the lungs, and everything else, and you're like, this is it. And what? Okay, that's it? That's it? No, hey, what is this thing under the spleen? Like there was no, I don't want to say pushback, because that's not what I'm trying to do here either. In terms of confrontation, it's just, there was no friction. There was no wrestling these ideas. So I can see that as well. I think,
I don't even have the option.
And you're right. But I think what strengthens your point is persevering through the challenge. If nobody challenges you, you don't get to show how you can persevere through it. However, if you allow me the opportunity to truly challenge your ideas, and at the end of the day, I'm left with my pickle in my hand, then guess what? I think you've accomplished something.
Yeah, that's the point. Is my point of my point
right
of my previous thing is how many let's ask a real simple question. How many clerks of courts, which, it's like secretaries for like a professional office, they're the ones doing all the work and not getting any of that fucking appreciation. How many fucking clerks of court are out there doing fucking yes, I mean,
dude, you lose your life. You lose your life.
Let's be honest,
you know what? I like your point because we're sold on the fact that you lose your life. But I used to this is a metaphor that runs parallel to this point. I used to say, remember when all the millennials would tell us, don't get caught with a profile picture with a beer in your hand. Your employer will never hire you. And then guess what? You had a whole generation of kids scrambling. Oh my God, I'm tagged in this photo. And then it took you just standing there with a tequila bottle and getting hired by a law firm to go, oh shit, it was all just noise. Go figure. And that's what a lot of this is. The people that make real change, if I can make you afraid of the friction that comes with that adversity, I'll have you complacent like a Cartman on the couch playing Fortnite.
Yeah. So you brought up a lot of different things. I'm gonna focus more on the anarchy and what do we do and where are we going aspect of it, because I think that's kind of like one of the core aspects of the various things that you brought up, and we can go from there and we can talk about more things either on this show or on other shows or whatever, depending on. I mean, I'm down to go for as long as you want, so it's up to you. But the place that I would like to start on this is I'll do a screen share. Now, these are going to be case law that I copied and pasted straight out of the cases, but it's just easier for me to use my website because it's all cold into one location. So if you just approve that screen share that I just did. So this first one here, and I have a Supreme Court case that we can hit after this, but it's a lot longer. It's a lot more in depth. And if you've never seen it, it's the most crazy thing ever, right? So the short answer, and then we'll expand from there to your question, is I'm not an anarchist. I'm an anti-14th Amendmentist. If you boiled everything that I do and everything that I think if we remove the 14th Amendment entirely, which Congress has already said we should do, which I'll show you that as well. I have that. I was actually building all these. Yeah, I was building all this while you were talking. As far as I'm concerned, tearing the 14th Amendment out as though it's a tumor is basically like 85% of everything that I really. And then going back to the gold standard and eliminating unconditional promises to pay and orders to pay being transferred as currency, which is actually unconstitutional in my state. If you look at the original state constitution, it's actually unconstitutional to use unconditional promises to pay as a means of currency, which would include Federal Reserve notes. That's a whole nother conversation. But anyways, so I feel like this is a really shocking place to begin. We have Ellen R. Van Valkenburg v. Albert Brown. And again, there are people online that are haters of mine, and they all, one of the things I've seen so many times is, does Brandon ever say anything within the century? Occasionally I do.
But works, guys.
I prefer the 1800s. I think the 1800s is a lot of things.
That's the foundation.
It's the foundation, right? So I don't sit in the 1800s because I try to. I sit in the 1800s because every time I search for anything, that's where I wind up. It's not a choice, okay? So with that said, we have the 14th Amendment, 1871, and then bang, right after that, we have the California Supreme Court, 1872. What does the honorable justice of this case, I don't know his name, I didn't look it up. What does he say? This is a direct copy and paste from the opinion that I pulled up text-wise from Justicia or whatever. No white person born within the limits of the United States and subject to their jurisdiction, which is the same terminology we see in the first line of the 14th Amendment.
Did you say white person?
That's correct. No white person born within the limits of the United States and subject to their jurisdiction or born without those limits and subsequently naturalized under their laws owes the status of citizenship to the recent amendments to the federal constitution. Now, this honorable justice is referring specifically to the 14th Amendment, which we will see in a moment. The history and aim of the 14th Amendment is well known, and the purpose had in view in its adoption well understood. That purpose was to confer the status of citizenship upon a numerous class of persons domiciled within the limits of the United States who could not be brought within the operation of the naturalization laws because native born and whose birth, though native, had at the same time left them without the status of citizenship. Now look at this. This is where things get interesting. These persons were not white persons, but were, in the main, persons of African descent who had been held in slavery in this country, or, if having themselves never been held in slavery, were the native-born descendants of slaves. Prior to the adoption of the 14th Amendment, it was settled that neither slaves nor those who had been such, nor the descendants of these, though native and freeborn, were capable of becoming citizens of the United States. And then the reference on that is one of the most
Doesn't an
incredible...
amendment change that? Then the next sentence, the 13th
Dred Scott versus Sanford. Massive. Dred Scott versus Sanford is like 1856-ish. I forget the exact date. Continuing on. The 13th Amendment, though conferring the boon of freedom upon native-born persons of African blood, had yet left them under insuperable bar as to citizenship. And it was mainly to remedy this condition that the 14th Amendment was adopted. Now, let me ask you a question. What is the definition What is the exact term that is used to describe the citizenship that this most honorable judge is talking about in this particular paragraph?
I don't know.
U.S. citizen.
Sure.
So are you a U.S. citizen?
Well, based on my listening to you, I'm supposed to say no.
Well, are you a white person that was
Son of a gun.
I can go on and on. Anyways, this is just I like this blurb. This is a post blurb. If you want to go to the big daddy, the big dog, you're going to go to the Slaughterhouse Cases. This is like if you think the last thing I just showed you hit you with a hammer, this is like getting hit with.
Well, so maybe I gotta.
Have you ever heard of this case? You ever heard of this case?
Well, no, I want you to be like a mother bird and chew it up and feed me a bit.
Oh,
here.
dude, this is
on the last one. What did that do for you? Like,
so the thing is that for example, you talk about anarchy, you talk about driver's licenses. So the 14th Amendment, we got to go through a couple of these. So this is the big dog. This is the, like, literally, if anyone's listening to this and they're like, I don't want to go and read a bunch of court cases. Listen, just go to Google Scholar. You don't need Westlaw. You don't need all this shit. Click on case law. Type in Slaughterhouse Cases. Slaughterhouse Cases, 1873. You're going to see it. It looks like this. Yes, it looks like it's a lot of text. And you can see I'm scrolling. I swear on my own
pickle.
This case, if you never, ever read anything else in law ever till the day you die, your life, the life of your loved ones, the life of your family, and every single aspect of your entire life, you can become tax exempt. You can get rid of your driver's license. Everything, not everything, like 85% of everything is contained in the opinion of the Honorable Justice Miller. And I say honorable because what happened was he says all this and everything got misconstrued. Everything got miscommunicated. If the Honorable Justice Miller came back to today's world and saw what's occurring, Mr. Justice Miller right here, I'm going to highlight him. He would go, I don't even want to say what he would do. He would be the angriest mother on the planet. He'd be so
but that's the game of telephone. My example of Foursquare was trying to convey is this isn't his world anymore, though.
No. Hold on. You start getting into.
I'm with you.
Start getting into what the terminology on this is called. What is it called? When you take a case and you break it down and see if it's ever been overturned. Blah blah blah. What it was. Shepherdizing. Fucking stupid word. I hate that word. Shepherdizing. So go ahead and try to shepherdize this case, and you will find out it ain't been touched, brother. This is the words of Justice Miller in the Slaughterhouse Cases. This is the spinal cord of everything we see today. Everything. And the reason why I say that is because Congress only has jurisdiction over. And I'm actually literally in a case right now. I'm waiting for a DOJ attorney he's only got a few days left on his response. We'll see what happens. This is the crux of everything because Congress only has jurisdiction over the U.S. citizen. A U.S. citizen is a released slave from the Civil War. People think that the Constitution applies to U.S. citizens. Absolutely. That is completely, utterly. If I was a judge and someone told me they were a U.S. citizen, I would treat them as if they just waived all of their rights. U.S. citizens do not have any of the rights. The only absolute right of a United States citizen is to residence within the territorial boundaries of the District of Columbia. And I know that's the most insane thing anyone's ever said, ever. And I can prove it, but it takes me a while. It's a whole presentation. The thing is that people think they're U.S. citizens. They're not. You never were. No one ever was. If you were born in one of the 50 states of the Union, you never were, ever.
So can I challenge it just a second?
But
here?
I want to pop this. So we can get into all different. We can get into what Congress says about this, the 14th Amendment, equal protection law or tool of usurpation. This comes from 1967, June 20th. This is Congress talking about how the 14th Amendment is literally a takeover operation from a foreign entity, and they go on and on and on. This whole article is available on my Q&A page for my law firm as well as my nation. And you can go through here and you can see it's not terribly less, like 7 pages of 3 columns, right? And all they're talking about is how the 14th Amendment is completely illegal. It was never legally ratified. It's complete bullshit. It's a foreign takeover, and it doesn't exist. Now, if the Congress of 1967 is correct in what they said, which I personally believe they are, the U.S. citizen designation does not even legally exist. Now, if we go back to the Slaughterhouse Cases, which if you think what Congress has to say about the 14th Amendment, the Slaughterhouse Case is even more crazy. These are various quotes from what I just showed you. All this text, blah, blah, blah. I picked out, this is all through my litigation. So I go into litigation and I pick out all these quotes and then I'm like, these are so cool and so useful. I'm going to put them on my website. I'm going to call them in, right? The Negro, having, by the 14th Amendment, been declared to be a citizen of the United States, is thus made a voter in every state of the Union. Quote number 1. Quote number 2. The first section of the 14th article, to which our attention is more specifically invited, opens with a definition of citizenship. And I'm telling you, this quote that I'm reading to you right now is the exact quote from the exact case that split the country into 2 different citizenship classes. I am literally reading to you right now the core of the core of the core of the birth of the U.S. citizenship category. Didn't exist before this. It didn't exist before this paragraph.
But would you agree that was created to?
Well, let me read it. Let me read it.
Please, sure.
The first section of the 14th article, to which our attention is more specifically invited, opens with a definition of citizenship. Not only citizenship of the United States, but citizenship of the states. Here we go. This is it right here, bro. I put this in all caps and bold. No such definition was previously found in the Constitution, nor had any attempt been made to define it by act of Congress.
Citizen.
Now we're going to go back. I'm going to
talk about the word citizen.
The word, well, they're talking about the 2 different aspects of citizenship, or citizenship. I mean, before that point, what does it mean?
No such definition was previously found. Definition of what?
Citizenship.
Okay.
It's just we the people. That was it.
Right.
It was very simple. It was just, you're here, you're a citizen. Like people.
Wait. You're telling me we give the founding fathers so much credit. We give them everything. Look at these brilliant guys. They created a whole thing. You're telling me a room full of 20-year-olds seasoned with a couple of 60-year-olds that probably had a salivating appetite for the other ones in the room. Are we going to pretend, or you're telling me they sat in a room for a couple hundred days creating a country and they failed to define what a citizen was? We give them all this credit. They couldn't even tell us what a citizen was.
No. It's not. I will let me continue, because there's a whole second part of this that we may not get into today. Okay. So continuing from where I just left off, it had been the occasion of much discussion in the courts by the executive departments and in the public journals. It had been said by eminent judges that no man was a citizen of the United States, except as he was a citizen of one of the states composing the Union. Those, therefore, who had been born and resided always in the District of Columbia or in the territories, though within the United States, were not citizens. So check this out. 4 USC 71. Seat of government. You think, oh, this is going to change. You said earlier in your thing, oh, this could just change. And Stephanie, this shit ain't changing for nobody at any point for any reason. Permanent seat of government, all that part of the territory of the United States included within the present limits of the District of Columbia shall be the permanent seat of government of the United States. UCC 9-307. This is involving, we're starting to get into
every code. I'm more impressed about how you just got this top of mind.
Check this out.
Which most attorneys that would challenge you can't do.
Now check this out. So what this is involving, it's gonna be a long time to understand. So a Federal Reserve note is an unconditional promise to pay. An unconditional promise to pay is between typically two parties. What are the two parties? You have a creditor and a debtor, right? The creditor is obviously the Federal Reserve or Federal Reserve Bank. You can look at what's in your wallet and figure that out. What's the debtor? UCC Article 9, Section 307. This is an explanation of the debtor involving the unconditional promise to pay called a Federal Reserve note. Who is that debtor? The answer to the question is the term United States. United States is a person. Now you go down to subsection H and you're going to find out where is that person, who is the debtor of a Federal Reserve note, which is an unconditional promise to pay, which is a negotiable instrument, which is a security. Where is that debtor located? And it goes right along with 4 USC 71. The answer to your question is the United States is located in the District of Columbia. So what do we have? We have, 51 different states or whatever. So we start getting into things like, for example, this is pretty shocking. Washington, D.C., 51st state. FAQ. This just totally me. I ended up filing a bunch of FOIA requests, and it's like a whole thing, and it's like my followers are following me. So this website is all about making Washington, D.C. the 51st state, which is never going to happen. They've been trying to do this for half a century. It's never going to happen. They're retarded.
Who's trying to do this?
Honestly, I have no idea. About us,
folks, like an organization, not the district.
Statehood Commission. Statehood Commission.
Gotcha.
DC Gov. I don't know.
But we could agree this is probably just what, some like DC residents or people, not
dude.
this.
I don't have a clue, but check this out.
Okay.
Check this shit out. So we've seen 4 USC 71, all that part of the territory of the United States included within the present limits of the District of Columbia shall be the permanent seat of the United States. And then we have UCC 9-307 talking about the location of the debtor, which is involving the debtor of the promissory note called the Federal Reserve note. That particular debtor as a person is located in the District of Columbia. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Now check this out. If DC becomes the 51st state, what will happen to the federal seat of government? Look at this first line. This area is unpopulated. Bro, I swear to God, I almost launched out of my chair. I did a FOIA request. FOIA request is this. What is the exact territorial coordinatal boundaries inside of the District of Columbia? That is this so-called quote-unquote unpopulated area that's called the United States. And when you go under the United States Code, definition of United States in USC, you'll see every single definition that they use is involving what I've just shown you. Every single one. 28 USC 3002, subsection 15, United States means a federal corporation. What's the definition of continental United States definition? In a geographical sense, it's going to go on. In a geographical sense, it means the several states and the District of Columbia. Whoa, hold on a second. Continental United, the term continental United States means the District of Columbia. You mother just told me the District of Columbia isn't a goddamn state. You have a whole website trying to make the District of Columbia a mother state. And then in the USC, you define a state of the United States as the District of Columbia? Okay. Wait.
Continental United States means the District of Columbia. Okay.
And the states.
And its states.
Yeah, but what states? We start getting into what states, right? Do you want to get into that?
Sure.
No problem.
But can we also agree?
Check this out. What are the U.S. territories of the United States? Right now, let me back up. 28 USC 1442A. I had a case that this mother. He's actually a cool dude. I'm not going to freak out. He's a DOJ attorney. He's the complex litigation chief. He's actually not a bad dude. I actually don't think he's a bad dude. So he removed my SBA case from state to federal court, right? And he used this right here. He used A1, okay, which talks about if there's an agency. I sued the United States Small Business Administration, which is an agency or any agency thereof of the United States, right? So I get it. Now I was trying to figure out how do I kill this removal? It's bullshit, right? Subsection. So they say state court. They can remove a case to federal court from state court. Great. What's the definition of state court? The term state court includes the Superior Court of the District of Columbia, a court of a United States territory or insular possession, and a tribal court.
Wait, don't go back to that real quick. The Superior Court of the District of Columbia, a court of a United States territory.
District of Columbia is not a state of the United States. Right,
sure.
So what the are they talking about? You see it?
But it's a court that's in insular possession by that state.
No. I got you, Dan. I guarantee you the DOJ attorney was thinking the same thing. Now, check this out. This is my actual filing. We're going to go to the actual filing that I filed in this case. This is the most badass motherfucking case filing I have ever filed on any case in my life, right? So this is my filing. I just filed this on the 31st, so 6 days ago, right? Comes now, blah, 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 all the good stuff. Here's the definition of the word state, blah, blah, blah. State of California is not any of the following items. It's not those 4 items, right? Examples of a territory or insular possession of the United States would be Guam, American Samoa, Wake Island, Midway Islands, Johnson Atoll, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, etc. It wouldn't be state of California. And this comes straight out of Caja versus U.S. The statute is one of universal application within the territorial limits of the United States and is not limited to those portions which are within the exclusive jurisdiction of the national government, such as the District of Columbia.
That's a bit of a smoking gun. I'll give you that.
Generally speaking, look at this. Generally speaking, within the state of this union, the preservation of the peace and the protection of person and property are the functions of the state government and have no part of the primary duty, at least of the nation, meaning the federal government. The laws of Congress in respect, dude, this is like the biggest missile ever. The laws of Congress in respect to these matters do not extend into the territorial limits of the states, but only have force in the District of Columbia and other places that are within the exclusive jurisdiction of the national government. Go to, is state of California within the exclusive jurisdiction of the national government? Please don't do this to me, Google. Please tell me. No, California. Thank you, Google. Oh, I haven't lost you yet, brother. I haven't lost you yet. This removal only works if the originating case was done in the District of Columbia or one of the U.S. territories / territory. We'll get into that in a minute. Or insular possessions. Now,
you got to let me ask a question though when you get
hold on. Historical information. So territories of the United States are sub-national administrative divisions and dependent territories overseen by the federal government of the United States. The American territories differ from the U.S. states and the Indian reservations in that they are not sovereign entities. And we have this whole article going over this from the Department of the Interior, but here's the simplicity of it. We have 5 U.S. territories that are inhabited, and we have like 9 that are uninhabited. The 5 inhabited territories are American Samoa, Guam, Northern Mariana Islands, Puerto Rico, and the United States Virgin Islands. The uninhabited, I didn't get into. It's like pointless, right? Then we have U.S. insular possessions. We go right to the U.S. Code, 42 USC 5204. The term insular area means any of the following: American Samoa, the Federated States of Micronesia, Guam, the Marshall Islands, the Northern Mariana Islands, the Trust Territory of the Pacific Islands, and the Virgin Islands. Then in 19 CFR 7.2, we get more information on the insular possessions, and then I list all of the court cases called the insular cases. You can look them up. Insular cases. These are the cases associated with U.S. insular territories. Summary and relevance. Due to the fact that state of California has nothing to do with any of this, it's not part of the definition of a state court. This voids the original removal order and makes removal an abuse of discretion and also fraud if not reversed. This is a gross jurisdictional overreach and is legally no different than the seat of government called United States as a juristic person attempting to gain jurisdiction over a case originated in some place like France or Norway. This is made crystal clear in Caja versus U.S. for USC 71, UCC 9-307H, and then we have a caveat, which is for USC 72. So when you do have one of these so-called several states of the union, which actually isn't state of California, state of Utah, it's places like Johnston Atoll, U.S. Virgin Islands, etc. When they do, let's say I did file a lawsuit in Guam, they can remove that case to a federal court, and then all offices attached to the seat of government shall be exercised in the District of Columbia and not elsewhere except as otherwise expressly provided by law. They can't do that with state of California because state of California is a sovereign entity from the entity called United States, which is located only and exclusively in the District of Columbia. And yes, it has U.S. territories, possessions, and insular possessions, none of which are state of California. And no one's ever heard of any of this. Everyone thinks I'm crazy.
So I appreciate the depth and the accuracy at which you present all of that. We do have to start to land this plane to a certain respect, but I do have the intention of we need to wrestle this again sometime soon. But I want to pose one last question to you, and then I have a wrapping thought so you as well, we can close this thing. I appreciate the depth at which you are weaponizing their words against them. And I bring up that example of a Foursquare game because over the scope of 300 years, if everybody's writing a rule book on how to play Foursquare, and you've got multiple facets of different organizations, agencies, and layers at which they apply to each other and don't. Oh, no, that's a book for that geographical location over there, not over here. And yet a judge may be able to go, well, with the consideration of what Arkansas is doing, I do think that blah, 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 blah. So they ignore the book, but the book still applies. And you've got all these different rule books. And over the course of 300 years, different rules evolve, different rules drop, different come, the whole scope. And yet I truly want to ask you, do you think those connections you're making right now, while maybe accurate and applicable, do you think those connections, lines, and rules were created with intention on how they play on each other? Or while weaponizing those words against you, you drew the lines, I'm just using them against you. Could this be the unintentional consequence that came from all these different legal writings. I say it like that because it feels like when you go, that's exactly how the DOJ would interpret it. And he didn't think about how this law over here crafts and molds that understanding. You're probably right. As you mentioned earlier in the podcast, you're probably right. Nobody's fought it. Nobody's brought it up. And that guy hasn't thought about it, because I'm telling you, once they get what you call the bar, what do you call it? The bar pass, the barcode, the bar, whatever.
Bar card.
The bar card. Okay. Just so you know the frame of mind of a person in that populace, some of them are actual true intellects. Like these aren't dummies in terms of compared to like mechanics. Like there's some really brilliant mechanics, but en masse, there's probably more brilliant attorneys. And I will be the first to tell you attorneys are dumb. So I agree. But also, are we going to sit here and I think you got smart people that work their whole life to get the pass. It's exhausting. It's grueling. I don't have the pass because after 3 failures, I'm not memorizing your bullshit. I'm done. You've exhausted me. I'm 27 at the time, 28, 29. I'm done. I've been in school my whole life. I'm not a test taker. You lost me. But when that's the whole goal of the person that's been on this road the whole life, like we talked about me being on debate. I was lucky at 16 being around my friends. I knew what I wanted to do with my life. If I could get paid to debate, shit, that's what I want to do. And law is how I'm going to do it. So I knew I wanted to be an attorney. That was my whole life. And if that person's building their whole trajectory, way too much money, way too much time, and by the end of it, they got the golden ticket. Guess what, dude? They're not opening that book up again the way you are. And so I appreciate the accountability. That DOJ did not make that connection. But my pushback to you is this. Do you believe the creators, when they put this thing together and molded it, that was the intention? Or is it possible you and I may agree that this was an unintended consequence that is kind of crippling or hurdling the system? And go ahead.
That's why I said the Justice Miller of the Slaughterhouse Cases, if he saw what was going on, he'd be.
But that's why my retort was, this isn't his world anymore.
No,
like,
it's not.
I would think the person playing.
So when you read, so all these, I don't know how many.
Wait. So we would agree then that this wasn't the intention. Well, this was not the intention of the writer. Right?
Yes, and it's actually really sad, and I think it gives people. Sure. I think it would actually temper some of the anarchists out there, because the thing is that when you actually read what Justice Miller is trying to say, you don't get any racism, you don't get any hatred, you don't get anybody. It's Justice Miller was saddled with this gigantic issue, which is where all these from every direction were released. It's called manumission. They were released from slavery, and then it's like, guys, Supreme Court, whoever, Justice Miller, what the do we do with all these people, bro? And it's the whole goddamn country.
A tribe of 350 million people
looking outside of, well, it wasn't that many, but
yeah, you're right. 100
Justice Miller was the guy. He was the guy. And you read what he has to say, and it's beautiful. He's basically saying, and I hate to do this. I hate to please read his opinion. Please don't take please, God. It's the reason why
we're in this only opinion. Because I want the listener to also recognize
he's the big dog.
It's seasoned with 8 other justice
he's
opinions.
With the other ones. Yes. So what he's saying in a nutshell, and please, God, if there's one thing ever that you read from today until the day you die, it's got to be what Justice Miller says in the Slaughterhouse Cases. It's for your children's sake. It's for everyone's sake. But just, it's almost a disservice, but I'm gonna try my best here. He says, look, guys, the South doesn't want these released slaves to have the full rights of a state citizen. It's okay. We're going to create this whole new citizenship category, and it's basically going to be like employees of the government, essentially, that don't get paid, and we're going to call them United States citizens. And they're not going to have rights. They're going to have privileges and immunities.
But
And-
would you agree that was seasoned with the understanding and cloud of those beings not being human? And this
property,
is a white,
legally
powerful
property.
man making a compromise,
Yes.
right? But
they,
we
they were
also
legally
agree,
considered property. It's
But
like
no,
giving, yeah.
but
Yes.
now we got to agree 200 years later,
Yes.
that is so far from the interpretation of black folks. So we also got
And
to
here I
agree
am
we've
saying,
abandoned that,
cool,
and there's a
and
whole new interpretation
and I'm the guy.
and
No,
charade and practice of
I'm
that
the
law.
guy. I'm the guy saying that this thing needs to be burned. And I'm telling you right now, if you burn the 14th Amendment, CPS ceases to exist. The public school system ceases to exist. Federal Reserve notes cease to exist. The police ceases to exist. We have only sheriffs. The police is gone. We have no CIA. We have no FBI. We have no NSA. Every three-letter agency, ATF, even the term firearms. You start going down that rabbit hole, firearms is only in relation to U.S. citizens. The Second Amendment doesn't say the word firearms anywhere. It says the word arms. In fact, the word arms is capitalized, which is also interesting. So when you say firearms, if someone says to me, oh, you have firearms. Oh, hold on a second. I'm going to totally freak out. I'm going to start screaming. I don't have any firearms. I've never had any. I don't have any. I don't know what they are. I don't build them. I don't own them. F you. I have arms, and I'm not a U.S. citizen. Justice Miller says there's these two categories, the state citizen and there's the federal citizen. There's two terms that he uses to describe the state citizen. Man of the union, and the word union is capitalized. The word man is not capitalized. And he uses another term called free man of the union. The word free man is not capitalized. It's all one word, Freeman, one word, non-capitalized. Union is capitalized every single time. So you can call me a man of the union, or you can call me a free man of the union. You call me a U.S. citizen, I'm going to completely freak out. Because if I'm a U.S. citizen, I have firearms, and I don't have firearms. I have arms. I have arms.
What do you mean by that?
That's it.
What do you mean by that? The difference between firearms and arms.
It's
Do you have
firearms
guns?
and arms.
What are we talking about?
We're talking, dude, it's literally, the ATF is not ATA. It's not alcohol, tobacco, and arms. It's alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. They couldn't use the word arms. Arms is for state citizens, not for federal citizens. Firearms is for federal U.S. citizens. Federal U.S. citizens is only released slaves after the goddamn Civil War. I'm not a released slave, bro. That's not me. That's not me, bro. It has
At
nothing
the same
to do
time,
with me.
though, a judge that has been practicing for 30 years and has presented this interpretation, they're not going to subscribe to the fact that black folks are, while you're right, while you have found the convoluted, twisted mental gymnastics loophole in our writing, some Democrat judge is no world going to interpret their citizenship any different than yours, simply just on the social practicality, the way we've been institutionalized, the way
Then
it's
we're
been
going to
practiced.
appeals, or I will be suing you in the court of federal claims. Because you got to think, you're on the state side, right? Now we can go deeper into that, which is, again,
No,
there's
you're
8
right.
million
There's a
conversations,
major
but
difference there.
on the state side, your judges actually have oaths of office, and I can bang the out of those oaths of office, right?
What do you mean? Why?
You signed a oath. I can go and get not a FOIA request, it's the state version of a FOIA request. I can get those oaths and then bang the piss out of the judge if they don't behave. On the federal
What do you
side,
mean? Why? How they took an oath. To them, it's just, yeah, of course I'm going to do everything.
the
How are
Constitution.
you banging them over the head with it?
Well, if they do anything unconstitutional, you can bang that local bond, that local oath has an insurance policy behind it. You can bang that insurance policy. Now the thing is, on the federal side, they don't have any of that. They have basically like a jurisdictional immunity. They don't have, yes, they may have oaths, but there's not like anything like behind it. Like on the federal side, you can't really bang the judges. On the state side, you can bang
They don't
the
like
judges really
that.
fucking hard. So the thing is that it all depends on where you're at. Like on the state side, there's benefits, there's pros and cons. And then on the federal side, there's pros and cons. The biggest pro of the state side is you can bang that insurance bond. If you bang, now what's crazy about the insurance bond, the craziest thing in the world, it's only for like $8,000, bro. And if you exhaust that insurance bond, they're done. They're dismissed as a judge. It's over.
Okay.
The insurance bond on the state side is so small. It's mind-boggling. It's like $5,000 to $9,000 typically on the state side.
Yes, that's accurate. So while we have broken the floodgates and we're all over the place with a lot, I want the listener to know, Brandon gave me 3 like dense topics. He goes, pick one, because normally they take like 2 to 3 hours per of the 3 that I'm well versed in. And not one of the 3 is the 14th Amendment. I don't want to make a declaration for a future episode because clearly we came in with the intention of talking about money, and in the back of my head, I was hoping seizing it with citizenship, and we barely
we hit like 2% on money, bro.
But we got to agree, a dialogue was productive. Now, I don't think productive how you and I signed up for with the hope of like I like going in with an inquiry and coming to a conclusion. My friend, I want to at least leave you with, I hope there is virtue the court system respects in your efforts. And I do believe it would happen because that push is necessary and they don't get it enough. However, I want to at least close my perspective with, I'm not totally sold yet. Maybe that opens the door for another one. I'd like to see one of the things that is not on your list of 3 that I think would be a great inquiry for us coming forward. I need to do reading on the 14th Amendment. And then I'd like to challenge you with let's go in with a mission statement. The mission statement being, convince me to eliminate the 14th Amendment. That's for coming attractions, because I would like to do some of my own preparation. I'm fortunate enough to have the ears of people that wouldn't personally put themselves in this chair, but would be able to benefit this dialogue. So, all that being said, on our live show that maybe one day I can get you to join us on, maybe to promote this podcast episode.
Yeah, I'm down.
We go every topic, and every topic we close with our wrapping thoughts. So I'm going to give you my wrapping thoughts on 2.5 hours of dense dialogue.
Can we break here for a pee before I explode real quick?
Please go now.
Thank God for a producer. You got a producer, whoever is there. Anyways, I'm entirely ready for your closing thoughts.
Perfect. So again, I had presented, I'd like to see you come back, and I'd like to see us parse that apart further. However, unpacking such a dense dialogue, my wrapping thought is going to be this. 1, there seems to be an acknowledgement. I don't think this was the intention. And when I was going through law school, there are so many considerations when creating laws, fighting laws, and a judge considering those laws. Whether there's political veils that are at play, or the social beliefs and understandings at that time, all different types of factors. The one factor that has been true blood and stood out to be the best finger on the pulse has been policy. And boy, we may make laws with an intended consequence, and we get the opposite. And that's just, again, hitting the simulation button. That's you're running a simulation. You have predictions. You've thought about how you want this to play out, and then, oh shit, it turned out a totally different way. And then we adjust. It goes to a court system, or somebody fights it, or injury occurs and action is required. But the thing that has been the true blood consideration or theory to wrestle with is policy. What is the policy you're actually trying to accomplish? The law may totally miss that, and that's an unforeseen consequence that we didn't intend for. However, what was the policy? And I'd like to think at the end of this road, you and I do kind of agree that this wasn't the policy intention. And when Justice Miller steps in and creates a totally different avenue of citizenship, it's because we got these people that just refuse to see a person with too much melanin at the malt shop. And because of that, I got to create a whole consideration so you can sleep at night and stop being a hemorrhoid in my ass. And because of that, we've walked that road to its fullest extent. And now a Brandon Joe Williams gets to say, look what you did. You created two versions of citizenship, and black people are different than me in the eyes of the law. That, I think we should also agree, could have been Miller's intention, but definitely not the full mechanism's intention. And so I can appreciate where the dialogue is just throw away the 14th Amendment and we'll do that. I'm hesitant to do that, but I'm willing to open my mind to its consideration, because while I don't think this system of law is anywhere near perfect or rightness, I do believe in the scope of, I think it's like 250 countries in the world, this is the closest or the bestest. So while it isn't perfect, we're working with a good mechanism, and through true, real criticism, constructive criticism with the hope of getting better, we can get as close to that line of perfection as possible. You'll never touch it, but we can continue to try to get close to it. Brandon says, if I was a judge and someone said I was a U.S. citizen, they just conceded it all, and they're not a citizen anymore. And what you just did was make an admission to where you've cut yourself from any lifeline you've held on to. I think that's fun. I can have some affection for that type of position. At the same time, my pushback to that position is this. Has there ever been someone in any of these games, any of these Foursquare games over the course of 300 years, but even just take this recent year or decade, every person beyond Brandon Johnson and a small collection of people that are growing in this type of theoretical belief or perspective or ideology, whatever we want to give the term, of those folks, beyond those folks, en masse, and I'll say 90%, if not 95, if not 99% of the folks do have a license, do vote, do make the acknowledgement that they are a U.S. citizen. And while on paper, Brandon is right, where the rubber meets the road, in the reality of practicality, there has never been a human or a U.S. citizen, I use our play terms, there has never been a U.S. citizen that has gotten a license, voted, or signed some W-2 or IRS form that the court denied them the ability to call upon any of those rights, amendments, and that Constitution that is the bedrock to their existence. That, I think, is the crux of my point. My point being, I will play in this world forever, but what makes this world feel fantastical to me is because you would need at least one, if not all of the judges, to apply the law the way you're suggesting. You declare yourself a U.S. citizen, and now I bar you from any bounding to the 14th, the 1st, the 3rd, the 7th, whatever, any of those amendments. We know that's not the case. We know in the court of law, there's never been a person that has called upon those things and actually severed that relationship. So I bring us back to the point of wrestling this consideration of anarchy. We all agree that we're living amongst a group of strangers, and we need to have a set rule of a set community of rules and understanding so that we can safely abide in each other's orbit. And I don't have to worry about you harming me, stealing from me, and you can have the same assurance. And that comes from not necessarily what's in this shit, but how it's actually practiced. I look forward to the opportunity of coming in with an intended inquiry so you and I can actually wrestle with it to the point where maybe you convince me or I don't convince you, but we come to some sort of resting place of understanding. I feel like there's so much to unpack across the whole landscape of law, mainly because it's so dense and we haven't fully considered it all, that I agree. They're like Swiss cheese, these holes exist. But I also fear that when challenged or brought to the surface, they don't hold the weight the text says it does. And the only way it does is the humans that are practicing it also are persuaded by it to practice it as well. And I think you're going to find a hard time doing that with a judge or a magistrate or an attorney that has lived in this world forever. And part of the game needs to be beating them at their own game. I do think Brandon is very good at that. I mean, the DOJ situation where I make a point, you go, that's exactly what they would think. So check out this piece. The sad part is nobody, I don't think, has made that connection yet. And the unfortunate part is that connection only happens with the challenge of a Brandon Joe Williams. So I think no matter the outcome may not be how Brandon predicts, but what I could truly leave the listener with and Brandon with is I do think whatever result comes of it from that challenge, it is the step closer to truth, to rightness, to perfection of a legal system. So these are the necessary considerations, whether the system agrees with it or not, whether they adopt it, challenge it, ignore it, they need to have these considerations mainly because it forces them to not be able to ignore it. You have to at least acknowledge it. I don't care if you change the law and make a workaround, like if we abandon it, but make sure your terms are consistent. Make sure that everything is standardized across the board so I can't use your mechanism as a weapon against you, because that's what you've opened the door to. And that consideration doesn't come up to the person in their ivory tower in their echo chamber until that person challenges their status quo. And I can appreciate that person to the nth degree. Now, with all that being said, I want to give Brandon Joe Williams the opportunity. Please, what are your wrapping thoughts?
This is like a court case, bro. We're gonna go back and forth forever, bro. So I love it. I just can't. This is the coolest show I've probably ever been on. I'm just so excited about this. I think that dude, I just think this is like, we should do more shows. This is just so cool. This is just the coolest shit ever. This is like the coolest. Bro, I'm telling you, bro, this is how, I want to smash my table, bro. This is how a court case is supposed to be. This is how a court case is. Dude, please, Mr. Farrell, DOJ, complex attorney, complex litigation, please. This is how litigation is supposed to be, bro. If this is,
and yet neither of us have the pass to play, dude. We're on the sidelines.
If litigation was 50% of this show, 50%, we would have a whole new country. Yeah. Everything would change. Everything would change. Inflation would be gone. Everything would change. All your rights. You would have all your rights because you wouldn't be lost. You wouldn't be confused. This is it, brother. This is it, brother. We need to have conversations. We need to have conversations. Conversations, please. Can we have conversations? I'm like freaking out, bro. Like, I can't believe I've been going for 2 or 3 years. I've only had a few conversations. This is the best conversation I've ever had. Now, that said, and I'm freaking out, That said, that said, answer to everything you just said is sue me. I'm going to place an affidavit on the record. It's going to have
Bingo.
one sentence. I am not a United States citizen, and I never needed anything from the 14th Amendment, and I never had any citizenship associated with the 14th Amendment, and I never will because I'm not a released slave from the Civil War, and I'm not black. Now, rules of evidence 402, 602, and 603 states that affidavit now becomes evidence, and now the burden of proof falls on the opposing party. Now they have to now rebut that using an affidavit. But the problem is that if you think about, like, for example, the rules of professional conduct 3.7, most attorneys operate as though they're both the witness and the advocate. Rules of professional conduct says you can't be the witness and the advocate. You can only pick one. So if you want to rebut the fact that I am not a U.S. citizen, you're going to have to abandon the advocate position, go all in on the witness position, put in an affidavit, and let me grab this microphone with both hands. What am I going to do? I'm going to cross-examine you and put you in a jail cell, bro. I'm going to put you in a jail cell, bro. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to be in a jail cell. I am going to come to the jail with popcorn, and I'm going to stare at you. I'm going to look at you right in the eyes like this, bro. I'm going to look at you right in the eyes. I'm going to watch you, and you're going to be in a jail cell. What are you going to do, bro? Perjury. I'll get 6 months probation. No, you won't, bro, because I'll be freaking out, bro. I'll be screaming. Perjury. This guy knew he perjured.
Oh, hell no!
I'm gonna freak out, bro. You don't have personal information on this. You can't be writing affidavits, and if you do, please write an affidavit. I beg of you. Because the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna write a motion for cross-examination. I will cross-examine you, and when I cross-examine you, it will be the death of you. I will personally place you in a prison cell. I swear to you. So the thing is it's like, go ahead. If I say I'm not a U.S. citizen and I put it in an affidavit form, you have to prove that I am.
You ain't black.
Exactly. And everything that you do to try to prove that I am a U.S. citizen and you put it in your affidavit, all I got to do is figure out, where did you know that what you wrote was untrue? Because there has to be the thing about perjury people don't understand, and you understand this, but most people don't understand, is that there has to be a willingness to it. Like, you have to know it's false.
Exactly.
And then say it, right?
But
So
that
people
gets back
think
to
like,
my point.
people think like, oh, I don't know, and I'm scared. I don't know, and then I can't say anything because if I say anything, no. That's not how perjury works. Perjury is like, I know this is false.
But I don't think these people do know. Like that prosecutor, DOJ,
point.
whoever you push against, they have not done the reading you have. I'm promising you.
I agree with you. I don't think
you're committing perjury.
I've talked to this particular DOJ attorney who, you can look him up in 5 seconds. I don't know why I'm trying to prevent saying his name. I am 99% sure he does not have the intent to defraud. He does not have the intent to commit fraud. He does not. He really, I'm telling you, he really doesn't. He's not a bad dude. I really don't think he's a bad dude. I really don't. And we're going hard. We're going like bloodbath level shit right now. And I still really truly, if I had to write an affidavit right now under penalty of perjury, there's absolutely no way I would write on that affidavit that he knows what's going on. He's fraudulently writing over the truth in order to try to create I really, really, really think he's just trying his best, and he just doesn't really. He passed the bar, I think, in like 2021. I do a little background research on everybody that I go up against, right? Most of which are partners, which is hilarious because they got 15 plus years, 20 years. But this DOJ guy specifically, it's like 2021, I believe, is when he passed the bar and graduated law school. So He's been popping for 2 or 3 years. And I just really, really don't think. I just really, really don't. Dude, I'll say shit and I hear clack, 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 clack. Meet and converse. I hear clack, clack, clack in the background. He's
researching.
He thinks I'm crazy. He thinks I'm crazy, which most people do. But he's still, there's still a part of him like, this is crazy. You know, and then what is his favorite line? It's the favorite line of most attorneys. Mr. Williams, we're going to have to agree to disagree. That's it.
There it is.
That's it. That's the end right there. So, you know, it is what it is. You know, it is
That's
what it is.
But that comes back to my baseball versus basketball analogy. Like, you found out that they're playing basketball and you're shooting baskets, but as long as they're still scoring runs, doesn't matter how much higher your score is, they're going to go, that's not the game we're playing anymore. We're not playing basketball. The game's baseball. And I want to give you one last, beyond putting the actors of the legal system behind in a concrete box because they've committed perjury, are there any wrapping thoughts you'd like to give the listener on places to begin researching, things that they open the Pandora's box for them, sell them on one last final elevator pitch?
Slaughterhouse Cases. Justice Miller, bro. Justice Miller all the way, dude. Justice Miller. I mean, there's a lot of things. There's a million things I could tell you, but I'm telling you right now, dude, you got to read. And maybe it'll take you a little bit of time. Maybe you got to go and research over here and check out the history over here and see what's going on at that time period. Maybe you got to look up some of the words in a dictionary. Maybe you got to look up some of the words in a legal dictionary. But I'm telling you right now, there are two types of citizenship. And Justice Miller breaks that down for you beautifully. There are two types. You say, oh, I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm a proud U.S. citizen. I'm telling you, I swear to God, I swear on my life, my pickle, everything I love, everything, everywhere, you aren't. And the craziest thing is you think I'm crazy. He's crazy. He thinks I'm not a U.S. citizen. He's insane. I'm telling you, I swear to God, Justice Miller, I'm not the guy with all the answers, bro. I thought I had some answers, and you can watch some old videos from me from like a year ago, and I sound very confident, and I was. I mean, I really was. But I'm telling you, when I read the opinion of the honorable, bro, no one is more honorable, bro. No one. You think you think of like Justin Timberlake, and he gets up there and he does this thing, and it's been in front of 5,000 people, and you think, wow, how incredible. He gets up there and he does these dances and he sings in front of 5,000 people. Fuck Justin Timberlake, bro. The whole goddamn country, it wasn't 350 million people, but it was a lot of people. No venue in the world can supply even a fraction. Everyone is like this, bro. Like this, bro. What do we do, sir? What do we do, Justice Miller? And dude, this had the biggest balls ever. And he stood up and he said, this is what we're going to do. The black men are released. We're going to give them a special citizenship. This is how we're going to handle the situation. It's the most masculine thing anyone's ever done, bro. Ever. And it's like people just don't get it. They just don't get it. Like they think he's like weird or dumb or I'm dumb or whatever. Like, no. This is 2025 to 1873. This is, I don't know. It's a long time. It's like 150 years.
Yeah, 150 years.
He was trying to figure out a problem. And nowadays, in 2025, everyone says they're a U.S. citizen. You look at the definition of the word naturalization from 8 U.S.C. 1101, subsection 823. Do you know what makes a U.S. citizen? Someone who says they're a U.S. citizen. Oh, we can do a future show on that too. So the thing is that you aren't a U.S. citizen. When you say you're a U.S. citizen, okay, here we go. I'm gonna do something crazy and brand new. Ready? If you say you're a U.S. citizen, you're cutting your pickle right off. I'm telling you, I swear to God, the U.S. citizen thing is, dude. I'm telling you, if Justice Miller was here, bro. I'm telling you, Justice Miller is the man. He is the man. Justice Miller says there's men or free men of the Union, and there's 14th Amendment U.S. citizens, right? So when you go in a courtroom and they say, "Are you a U.S. citizen?" Yeah. Great. The thing is that it's completely voluntary. It's a completely voluntary expression. They asked you when you go in to get your driver's license, they ask you straight the up. It's a whole page on the computer. Are you a U.S. citizen? Question mark. And there's two bubbles. One bubble says yes, and one bubble says no. I clicked yes originally, and then later on, when I did it again, I clicked no. Do you know what happened to my overall experience of the DMV when I clicked yes versus no? Now, granted, I'm in California. You do that shit in Ohio, I guarantee you, I've heard stories. You say no, and then you go to the clerk, and they say, "Oh, you son of a bitch, we can't. If you're not a U.S. citizen, we get." Okay, I get it. I'm from Indiana. I grew up in Indiana. I'm actually a Hoosier originally. I get it. Okay, but overall, the question is this: they asked you a question. You filled out the goddamn questionnaire. I'm sorry. Like I hate to be the, I try to be in the middle somewhere. So the thing is that you just need to realize if you aren't a released slave and you could say to yourself, "Brandon, I'm black." I got it. Are you a descendant of slaves? And if you were, if at any point during your descendancy of being a slave, mom happened to be, or dad happened to be a citizen, it changes the conversation. The 14th Amendment is irrelevant. It's been long enough to where it's irrelevant. There is no situation where mom and dad were both slaves, 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 and then now mom and dad are both slaves, and you're the not quite that far, but you get my point. Like that's not the world we live in. It's just irrelevant. The 14th Amendment needs to go, bro. It needs to go. It was important at the time, and it was important for what it was. And Justice Miller is a genius. Dude, I have no more respect for anyone in the entire history of anything than Justice Miller. Really, I don't. But we're at the point now where we just don't. We don't need it, bro. Get rid of them. If you get rid of them, driver's licenses are gone. Federal Reserve notes are gone. CIA is gone. FBI is gone. Everybody's gone, bro. What's left? What's left? If we get rid of the 14th, if someone came, 14th Amendment is gone, unconstitutional. This, what's left? Think 1850, 1860. I like to say 1850 because it was before the Civil War. 1850. If you think of 1850, that's the country we will be inside of. And what is that country? Sheriff's office with deputies. County recorder, dude. Like you were saying earlier, county recorder. I own this spry gum, and I write up a little piece of paper with a pen. I hereby, declare that I am the owner of this spry gum, blah, 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 and I submit it to the county recorder. They got 30 or 60 or 90 days. If no one says, "Hey, that's my spry gum," it's my gum now. That's it. It's that ownership is so simple.
Yeah.
When you go back, if you go back, it's very simple. Very simple, right? You say to yourself, "Oh, UCC Article 9. What about secured parties and everything?" That's all craziness. And I guarantee you, if you put any jury in front of me, I will explain this, and the jury will go like, "Oh, UCC 9. That's crazy. We don't need that. We don't need that." I guarantee you put any jury in front of me, they will tell UCC 9, Article 9 needs to go. It needs to go. And I agree. It needs to go. It's way too complicated. It's very simple. Think 1850. You got the county recorder. You say, "This is my spry gum. Anybody want to challenge me?" No, this is okay. You can have the spry gum. Thank you very much. My spry gum now. It's very simple, right? So, that's the simplicity of the situation, in my opinion. And in my opinion, if we go back to now, why did everything become more complicated and more complicated and more complicated and more complicated? And my answer to that question is the definitions of words, terms, and phrases. Again, we go back to Black's Law. For example, the definition of secured party. No one knows what is. I've never once in my entire life have anyone, lawyer, attorney, judge, ever, anyone tell me the correct definition of the term secured party. So it's crazy because like I'm not actually anti UCC Article 9. But the thing is, if I ask people for a year, what is the definition of the term secured party? And there ain't one person that can get even close to the definition of the term secured party ever from UCC Article 9, I start to think like, don't you think it'd be a simpler world if we just didn't have UCC Article 9 and we just had a county recorder and people just recorded little quitclaim deeds and little bullshit, whatever, and we just kind of figured it out that way, kind of like it was in 1840. If you think 1850, most people, IQ 90, 110, 150, doesn't matter, they can understand it. If you ask UCC Article 9 related information, you got to have an IQ of 180 to understand it. Who benefits from that?
Well, the people trying to pull the strings, right? That's part of the. So, with all that being said, you've given us a lot to unpack, and even in your wrapping statement, you give us a lot. I'm not one to take a conversation like this and feel the need to, have the last word. There are two things that you kind of poked in me that I just want to exclaim. When you say that of all of the justices, Justice Miller has the biggest balls ever. I think that comes down to the person of interpretation, because one of personally,
that's my own life. That's my
exactly.
That's
and I
me,
appreciate that.
Yeah,
me, I think Justice Scalia is one that I've before, and this is prior to the mechanism murdering him in his own cabin. That was a justice that I truly appreciated all of the work that he did, and two very, 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 very different generations, right? So I'm looking at somebody that comes about 150 years later and is trying to bridge the gap of this weird colloquial old world and the new interpretation of practicality, where blacks are not just a different human being. They're kind of just like us, and trying to bridge that gap. And so I appreciate that perspective, but I only season it with how there is a board of 9 thinkers. You're drawing upon the decision of one, while there were 8 that also weighted all of that interpretation.
Yes, I fully acknowledge this, and I just get excited, and I just,
of course,
he's the guy that stood up
that's
and like
speaking your words. You're finding
he's the guy who stood up and said, I'm going to be the guy to say this. And it's like, it's just I agree with you 1,000%. I just think that he was just the fucking guy, man. He was just like a little bit like, okay, we're all going to go talk, and then he was the guy like, dude, look at Kavanaugh when he was getting put in, and everybody thought he was the biggest piece of shit in the world, and people were coming to us.
You hate drinking beer at 16.
I've seen Kavanaugh's. I looked up his legal cases and criminal cases. People coming to his house. There was the one guy who came to his house, got onto his porch, and then somehow had I don't think I'm going to kill Kavanaugh, and then like called the police and like reported himself to the police on Kavanaugh's porch, and then got arrested. You can look it up. Look up Kavanaugh porch. Wow. Look up.
Ask yourself why the mechanism doesn't report that on mass.
It's crazy. So I think to myself, like, this. Yes, there was all these guys, all these things, but like this guy was the one who like was like, okay, this is what we decided.
Yep.
Fair. This is what we all came together, and this is what we're doing, and the whole country, we've decided for the whole country what's going to happen, and this is what's going to happen. I mean, bro, like,
it's all being said.
It's like masculinity to like the trillionth degree, bro. This guy.
Well, that's illegal today. Yeah, you should be tucking it and skipping. But
this dude was willing to this dude was willing to die to give the released slaves something related to citizenship. I mean, I don't know, bro. I'm a big fan, bro. I'm like Justice Miller.
But again, I think
I'm like Justice Miller, what's up? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just like to the max. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. I appreciate it. And I want you to know, I'd like to revisit this one more time, at least. The next time, maybe I'd like it to be the inquiry of maybe convincing myself and or the audience of dispelling ourselves totally of the 14th Amendment. The last thing I wanted to say in acknowledgement of just everything you presented us, this great conversation, a really dense dialogue. Truthfully, liberate me from my ignorances. The beauty of having these types of dialogues of people that think different than you and being willing to wrestle ideas that you may not agree with, but prove to me you're right. Challenge yourself. The beauty of having this conversation with you today is, well, my takeaway, we may not have gotten to the answers we may have thought of or come to any conclusions that we inquired at the beginning. But truthfully, the ignorance you liberated me from is that I'm shocked that there's people in California that can think for themselves. So like, holy shit, here we are. I'm psyched. So I want to give you a thank you for giving me hope again, because I thought that shit was lost. But putting a cap on this thing, because I think you and I both agree we could go forever. We could exhaust this thing till we're blue in the face. So I want to give you an opportunity for all of the people that could be curious about your endeavors, past and future. Where can they find you? Where do you want to direct them? This is your opportunity to take the floor.
OneStupidFuck.com, bro. Best website ever made.
Perfectly said. Perfectly said. So to everybody else joining us, those that found us through the avenues of Brandon Joe Williams, but also to the rethinkers that have been given an opportunity to wrestle the status quo that they've adopted for the longest time. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know this was a long one. And the whole purpose of the Rethink Tank is to make you laugh, is to make you think. And if we did that, if we accomplished our goal, the best thing you could do to support this show is share this link. We're against algorithms that are trying their damnedest to make sure dialogues like this don't happen. And when they do, they don't reach your ears. So the best thing you could do to support things like this and our endeavors here is to share that link. If you liked it, that means someone else you know will too. And again, please share the link. But be sure to hit the like button, the subscribe button, so you don't miss this coming at you again, because we've got more in the chamber, especially with Brandon Joe Williams. I'd like to make it happen again. But with all that being said, you can find everything we do here in one central place, and that's at our website at www.rethinktakepodcast.com. We have our live show on Tuesday. It's at 7 p.m. Eastern time. We have our Sunday reactions channel, which is just a palate cleanser to take a little break from the chaos and just have some fun, wake up and have a cup of coffee with us. And we've got this So Here's Where I'm At and all these other different channels. So you can find it all in one central place. Be sure to head over to the website. But guys, again, if we made you laugh, if we made you think, the best thing you could do is just hit the like, hit those buttons, those little things that mean nothing to you, but do the best for us. And otherwise, guys, we appreciate your time, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Peace. Brandon, thank you for your time, my friend. This was glorious.
Dude, 100. Dude, I'm not even kidding. 170 shows. Each show 2 to 3 hours long. I've maybe 4% of my shows have been under 2 hours, and then maybe like another 5% have been over 3 hours. Like it's 2 to 3 hours, like 92% of the time. Dude, seriously, no joke. Like probably best show I've ever done.
That's a lot. Like, I appreciate it.
Like seriously,
is you're the perfect person that that's what this whole mechanism is for. This was all built for this. And you know, while I might have the goal of coming to a conclusion, whether it happens or not, the whole purpose is to wrestle. Free marketplace of ideas, damn it, let us have ideas and combat them.